the hour. It's 10 a.m. Mountain Time, depending on where you're at. It could be anywhere 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, and 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're joining us early, please get ready for the event. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you, is that I want you to be ready to, change things. Okay. Last time I attended an event like this, the speaker told me, hey, you really should, go use these next 12 minutes to hit the bathroom and get a drink of water, get whatever it is you're going to need so that you can pay attention here. And I'm going to say the same thing. As attorneys, I know that firefighting is a real issue, right? We spend a lot of time putting out fires and clients needing our undivided attention. And my challenge for you is, and this is going to be one of the principles you're going to learn today, is that it's okay to invest in yourself. And even though your clients may need a little bit of time, and they may be a little frustrated that it took you 2 hours to get back to them or whatever, this time is going to be worth it. So you can see the countdown timer there. When that hits 0, we'll get started. In the meantime, grab a drink of water, hit the restroom, do whatever you need to get going. I'm going to get this live up on all of the platforms, and then we'll get going. So So as you are logging in, I'm going to give this a chance. The one last platform needs to log in. If you're seeing this and you're early, there we go. It looks like all the platforms are now live. So if you are seeing this and you are early, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your name? What's your practice area? And where are you practicing? For everyone who's early, we're going to give you a chance to win. So we're going to be doing a lot of giveaways this event. We're going to be mostly books. Okay. I love books, and there's some books that I think are super, super helpful for attorneys. And so I have got some of my favorites, and we're going to be giving those away. That being said, I also know that most people have already read a lot of the books, right? And so instead of forcing a specific book, there's actually a list of like 5. And if you win a book, then you can, we'll give you the access to that landing page, and you can pick which of the 5 you want. So as you're getting here, all you have to do is kind of introduce yourself, name, practice area, and where are you practicing. And that will make you eligible for the first round of free books. As well as everybody who logs in early, we are going to give you, if you don't have a copy already, we're going to give you a copy of Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. So that's one of my all-time favorites. We actually had Dan come and speak at one of our last mastermind events, and he did an incredible job. And how we did that was by buying a bunch of copies of his book. And so if you haven't read that book already, we'll give you a copy of that for free. So just kind of need to know name, practice area, where you're joining us from, and that's all it's going to take to get you eligible for that. The timer there on the page shows when we're getting started. So if you're here early, all you got to do is use this time to hit the restroom, get a drink of water, whatever it is you need, so that you can come in and be distraction free. This is going to be an awesome event, and I want to make sure that you get the chance to attend. Looks like we've got all the chats up and running. So awesome. It's kind of fun to see people. If you see me looking over here, that's why. That's where the chats are. So, and sadly, all of the chats except one are right there. And then there's another one that's way over here. So you'll see me look over every once in a while, and that's why. I'm just trying to make sure I get to everybody. There we go. Bill, awesome. Bill, thank you for jumping on and saying hi. I love seeing people who are early. I think it's pretty impressive. Jennifer, you as well. Thanks for jumping on, saying hi, and coming early. So it was the very last minute that I decided I wanted to do a countdown timer, and this was the free one online. But with technology, it's always fun to see what's going to work and not work. So we did a test earlier, and that worked. And but then I always like to get it up and running early. This was the first presentation I've done in a long time that all of the tech worked on the first try. So my team and I, we got done at like 9:30 this morning with doing all of our checks and tests and everything. And we didn't know what to do. We were like, what do we do with the next 15 minutes? It's never worked smoothly like this until this time. So hopefully that's a good omen for what we're going to go through today. So awesome. We got another Cole and Steve. Thanks for both jumping in today. As we're using these last couple minutes, oh, that timer paused. Well, that's no fun. Well, is the video still working? Or I can't tell if it's because the internet paused. Page unresponsive. Exit the page. Well, the page is gone. That's what we're going to do then. There goes the countdown timer with 5 minutes left. That's what I get for saying that all the tech worked, huh? As soon as I said all the tech worked, that page broke. So that's what I get for saying that. But that's okay. We'll sit here. As we're waiting for the last couple minutes, like I said, this is the chance to go and use the restroom, get a drink of water. Thanks, Alexis, for saying you're still live. I didn't know if the page had froze or if my internet went out. So I appreciate you guys letting me know. Yeah, use these last couple minutes to really get ready. I would say have something to take some notes as well. So if you upgraded to the VIP, then you should have access to the workbook that's going to go along with this. The workbook's kind of for section 1 or for section 2. The first section, we're going to go through and kind of make sure everyone's on the same page, that we're in the same mindset, that things are still working the way that, that you and I are on the same page for what we're talking about. The second section, then we're going to dive deep into that workbook. So if I'm not using the workbook right away, that's why. But if you've done the VIP, you're going to have access to that workbook. If you didn't upgrade to VIP, that's okay. This is a free event. You can just take notes. I'm going to be sharing it with you here. The biggest reason I did the VIP is I personally do the audits that we're going to be talking about and whatnot in that second section. I do those personally about every other month. And so I was like, man, if I am doing these a lot, the people who attend, they're probably going to want to be able to repeat it. And so we made that VIP upgrade so that you can do them again on your own. With the VIP, you get access to this replay, so you can watch it again if you want to be guided through doing that audit again, as well as the workbook. So you can it's a digital workbook, so you can just keep filling it out as many times as you want. With the VIP upgrade, you also get access to our paid question and answer call that's after this. So normally, right now at this time, we would do what we call a roundtable in Attorney Freedom University, and it's a question and answer format coaching call. And the people of Attorney Freedom University, they agreed to postpone that by a couple of hours so that we could do this event first, and then we're going to do that call right after. So if you've snagged that VIP upgrade, you get to attend that call, so you can kind of just see and get some free coaching. Well, free for $25, free after you pay, right? So if you're interested in that, you can still snag that VIP upgrade. And if you use the code Chris50, you'll get it 50% off. So I'm not supposed to share those codes on this live, but if you're early, you get it. That's the answer. So if you go to timefreedomlawyers.com/better-than-resolutions, why don't I just put that in the chat? So if anybody wants to register for the event or get that VIP upgrade, and then we will start right on time at the top of the hour. So Vonna, Carol, thank you also for jumping in and saying hi. If you're just joining us now 2 minutes early, introduce yourself, name, practice area, where you're joining us from. Everybody who introduces themselves before we get started will be put in the raffle for, we've got a bunch of books that we're giving away for free, as well as everybody who joins us early is going to get a copy of Buy Back Your Time if you don't already have one. So if you're interested in a couple of books or at least Buy Back Your Time, introduce yourself real quick. You got about 1 minute before we do that. I'm going to grab a drink. I'm going to grab that link, and then we'll get going. You're going to get to see the side of my face a lot anytime I have to pull up stuff. So hopefully this is my better half. Sites. I am not Alex Hormozy. Let's just put it that way. I don't have a team of a bajillion people that are doing this for me. So there you go. I have dropped that link in the comments, both Facebook and YouTube. So if you refresh and look at those comments, you should be able to see a link from me. Alina is going to be managing this for us as well. And so she'll be dropping links in to the chat for me as we get going as well. But we are at the top of the hour. So anybody who's here before now, you have a chance to win a book. All you have to do is, there you go, John, you got in right before I wrapped it up. So anybody whose names are in the chat before 10:01 are going to get a chance to win one of the 5 books we're giving away. And everybody who introduced themselves before 10 will also send a link to you for a copy of Buy Back Your Time. So you automatically win just by being here. Now I've put a link into registering for the event. The only way I can contact you is if you have registered for the event. That's where I have your email address, right? I don't have your email addresses if you're just commenting on one of these posts. So make sure you've registered for the event with the name that matches whatever you put in the contacts, right? So if, like Bill, I know your name is William, so I'm going to use you as an example. If you registered as William Beck and you then put Bill Beck here in the comments, that may make it hard for us to find you. So make sure those names match up. You can click the link that I shared in the comments to register for the event. Obviously, you know about it, you're here, but that's where we'll use the contact information you put in that registration to send you any of the things that you win. So, but it's the top of the hour, so we're going to get started. Thank you, everyone who is here right on time. I'm impressed how many people showed up on time. That is really, really cool. So what are we talking about today? Today is the Better Than Resolutions event. A kind of fun journey on how this event came about. And so there we go. And so last year, my team and I were thinking, like, what can we do to help people kick off 2026 just as strong as possible? And if you know anything about me, you know how much I don't like New Year's resolutions. I just don't think they are super duper effective. And there's a lot of reasons, especially for attorneys, and we're going to talk about those reasons here in a little bit. And so we decided we were going to do an event that was better than a resolution. In fact, I think we called it an anti-resolution retreat when we very first started brainstorming this idea. And it was about goal setting and those types of things. And as we were doing that, we started asking okay, what's the deliverable here, right? I truly believe that if you're about to invest time hanging out with me, that you should have a measurable deliverable when it's over. You can look at this and say, for the amount of time I spent with Chris, this is what I got. And you can quantify that, and you can then see if it's a good return on investment or not. And so as we were doing that, we're like, man, no deliverables really stuck. And, we've helped a lot of people double their income. And again, we're going to talk about how we do that, but it's actually just a math problem. And I was like, I can help someone double their income if they're going from 10,000 a month to 20, right? That's pretty simple. But I can't help you double your income, at least not on a call, if you're at 5 million and you want to go to 10, right? I love helping people, and I would love to think that I am that awesome, but I will openly admit, you will not go from 5 million to $10 million just by attending this event. So double the income didn't work. And Hunter hit it right on the head. As we were doing this, we're like, you know what? It's hours. Because everybody needs more hours. The funny thing is we all have the same amount of hours, right? Everybody has 24 hours in a day. But we're always looking for more. And so, Hunter, you hit it right on the head. I'm glad you jumped in and commented when you did, because that's what we ended up on. So that's why, if you've been with us for the last 6 weeks as we've been pitching this, it started off as this resolution thing, goal setting thing. And then as we really nailed down what we're going to talk about today, it morphed into this, how to get 10 hours a week back, because I know I can do that. And I know I can do that on this call. And I know I can do that on this call, whether you're at 10,000 a month or $1 million a month. There are some tried and tested principles that are going to work for everybody, no matter what size of your business. And the cool thing about talking in hours is you then get to decide how you use those hours. If you're not making enough money, then you can reinvest those hours and go make more money, right? The average attorney in America bills $495 an hour. That's probably high or low, depending on where you're at. So don't feel like you have to use that number. But if you were to take 10 hours a week and bill it at $495 an hour, that's almost $5,000 a week, right? That's $20,000 a month. If you were to take that time and invest it back into income producing activities. For some people, that may be a ton of money. And for other people, if you're already at $1 million a month, then $20,000 a month doesn't sound like a lot, right? But for people who are at $1 million a month, having an extra 10 hours a week, what does that mean for you? Some of the ads you may have seen as we were hosting this event were me doing a puzzle with my daughter. So for those who know me more on a personal level, my wife was actually gone all last week. Talk about timing, right? I decided to launch a big event to we had a lot of people register for this event. And then my wife went out of town the week before we were doing it. So we're at the final week of pushing to make this thing happen. And my wife's out of town. And so I'm hanging out with my kids, taking care of them. And I'm working, and my daughter comes in and she's like, "Dad, will you do a puzzle with me?" And my goal has always been, if my kids ask me to do something, I don't want work to be such that I can't go do that work. I can't go do the things with my kids that they want to. So it was hard. I won't lie. I really wanted to say no, but I got up, stopped what I was doing, went and did a puzzle with her, took a picture with her, and used that as some content. So I still used it as work. But to me, that extra time is, I want to spend it with my kids. I travel a lot. If you know me at all, you'll know that I love going to Disneyland, and I wear Star Wars shirts. So you can see I've got a Star Wars shirt on today. This one's got spaceships from Star Wars. So that's what we're going to really focus on today, is that 10 hours per week. And you get to decide what that means to you. And so as we're doing this event too, I want to make it as fun and as exciting as possible. And so it's going to be more of an interaction. It's not just me talking at you the whole time. With that being said, we're also going to do a bunch of giveaways. So if you know me, you know how much I love books. And so there's a couple of books that we're going to be giving away. And we've got, I'm going to pull up the list because I don't want to say any of them wrong. Okay. So give me half a second while I pull up that list. The first one is Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. I know that one's on there. And the other one is $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. So those are the big ones that they're not really law specific, but there's some fun ones that have been pretty influential in my business. So I wanted to share those. The other books we have are The High Performance Law Firm by Andrew Zimmer. A lot of you probably have met or heard of Andrew Zimmer. I want to give him a huge shout out and thank you for his supporting of this event. He did a really good job at helping people get here. So huge shout out and thanks to him. We'll be giving his book away. The principles he teaches in that book are some of the closest I've seen to what I teach in my program. So it's been really fun to get to know him better. A lot of awesome principles in his program as well. So the other one is The Happier Attorney, the second edition by Brita Long. Really good book on value. We're going to talk a lot about value today. So that's the other one we're going to give. Law Firm Growth Accelerator by Andrew Stickle. The Power of System by John Fisher as well. So those are probably my four favorite books on law firm management. If there's another book on law firm management that I didn't mention that you love, drop it in the chat. I would love to hear about it. I'm always trying to learn more. So if it's not on this list, I may not have read it. So all that being said, to be submitted for the first chance to win these, just comment why in the comments below why you're interested in reclaiming 10 hours per week. Like, what would you spend that on? Would you use it to go on vacations with your family? Would you use it to do puzzles with your daughter? Would you use some of it to make some more money? Maybe like Hunter mentioned, use that time to hire somebody and start leveraging his time, right? So whatever that is, just drop it in the chat and we'll enter you in for the drawing. Now, again, if you want to win, you have to have registered for this event. The only way I can contact you is if you have registered for the event. So if you already registered, you don't need to re-register again. But if you haven't, if you're here just joining us because someone sent you the link, then make sure you register for the event. The link is in the comments. And so make sure you register for that event so we can send you that. We need your email address to send you the information, right? I can't send you a book if I don't know how to contact you. So I got some awesome answers coming in already. One of my favorite is sleep. That's not one I thought of, but you're absolutely right. That's going to be a big one. Better parent, vacation, leisure, leave the office by 5 p.m. We got some great answers coming in. So thank you. Those are great. Alina is going to be watching those comments. We'll give you another minute or two to put those in, and then she's going to do the drawing for the first 2 people. She'll just message you directly if you've won a book. Okay. So awesome. Let's jump in. We're getting great conversations and people are saying the right things. So I'm excited. All right. So who's this event for, right? Who is this event for? This event specifically is for law firm owners. Now, if you're not a law firm owner, the principles are still going to apply. So feel free to join us. But this event is for law firm owners, not people who just want to be a true solo, just them with no staff forever. That's obviously hard to scale if you're not willing to grow. And it's not for people who are not interested in owning their own law firm. If you're interested in owning your own law firm and you don't have one yet, that's totally fine. Please stick around. But I want to make sure that that you're interested in owning a law firm. I love if you are someone who's already making good money, but it costs you too much time and energy, you are going to get a massive return on today's material. The 4x4 rule specifically, I think could change your practice in the next 30 days or less. If you feel like your firm owns you instead of the other way around, if you want freedom without blowing up your income. One of the biggest things I hear is Man, I want more freedom. I want more sleep. I want to be a good parent. But I can't lose income, right? If that sounds like something, I can't make less. I can't afford to make less. And mostly if you're open to rethinking how law firms become a business. We're going to talk about the practice of law and the business of law. And those are two very different things. Now, this is not for you. And I wanted to put this in here as well, because if you're going to devote and get some time if you're going to invest time with me, I want to make sure you're going to get a return. So if you are looking for just hacks, shortcuts, or get rich quick, this is not going to do it for you. We can easily get you some awesome results quickly, but this is not a get rich quick. You've got to do the work. If you want motivation without changing behavior, right? If you just want like a raw, feel good about yourself and then move on with what you're already doing, then this is not going to work for you. And if you believe working 60 to 70 hours a week is just the price of success, if you've worked in big law, you've probably heard that, right? I'm going to tell a story a little bit later about my first offer in big law. And they specifically told me, like, you have to pay your dues and say goodbye to your family for the next 3 years. Again, those who know me know that was the worst thing they could have said to me. And that's why I'm not in big law, right? But if you just believe that that's what it takes to be successful, then this isn't going to be for you. And then if you want theory instead of execution, I believe that mind plus action equals results. And so we're going to be taking action. So this isn't just some motivational webinar. This is a framework. This is effectively an operating system that we can implement in your life to get you consistent time back, but it's going to take some work. My favorite part about this, though, is even though it takes work, we're going to give you the time back first. So you're going to have time to do the work. So how does today work and why staying till the end matters, right? So today's flow, I've got to spend some time working with you and helping you identify why you've lost your time. And so we're going to focus on that first. This isn't theory, but you do need to understand the why behind it before we can go into how to fix it. And so we're going to go through that first, and then we're going to go through the actual steps of reclaiming that time. So that's why I say the second section is we're actually going to go through the workbook. It's sitting here on this monitor, and I will pull it over to this monitor when we get to that point. But we'll go through that workbook and actually reclaim the time right here on the call. But first, we're going to go through why, so you understand. My uncle taught me this a long time ago. So I was maybe 12, 13 at the time, and my parents bought a new surround sound system. And it was like the first one in my neighborhood, it was pretty cool. And he was helping us set it up. And I wanted him to just like show me what to do, right? And he's like, hey, I can't. If I just show you what to do, then you'll be able to do this one. But if I show you why we do it that way, then you'll be able to set up every surround sound system. So he spent about 45 minutes teaching me how to set up a surround sound system and why we do it that way. And it was really cool because a lot of my friends ended up getting surround sound systems back in the day. That was the thing back then, right? And a lot of their parents didn't know how to set them up. And this punk 13, 14-year-old kid at the time, I'd be like, oh, I know how to set those up. And I'd pull it up and run the wires, and I could teach them why. And I was able to set up all these different surround sound systems, even though I'm not very techie, because I learned why it works. Not just how to do it, but why it works. And so we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to teach you why. I'm then going to teach you the tactics so we can do them together. But the most important thing is that you understand why those tactics work, because tactics can change, right? Like for a long time, people advertised in the yellow pages. I'm guessing, does anyone here still advertise in the yellow pages? If you do, I'd love to know. And if not, put a laughing emoji in the chat, because I'm guessing most of us don't use the yellow pages anymore, right? It doesn't mean that marketing doesn't work. It means the tactic of yellow pages doesn't work. And so if you understand why the yellow pages worked, then you can transition to Google and these other platforms. But if you're just stuck on the tactics will change, but the principles and the why won't. At the very end, I'm then going to show you how to implement this moving forward. It's one thing to do it once. It's quite another to be able to do it over and over and over again, right? If we reclaim some time today, that's going to be worth the time you've invested, right? If you reclaim 10 hours a week and then never do this again, then the 10 hours you reclaimed is still worth the 2 or 3 hours you spent with me. But if I can teach you how to do it over and over and over again, then that 10 hours compounds into the dream life you want to live. So stay until the end so we can implement it long term. And then, like I've said, as for the people who were here early, make sure you have removed distractions. As attorneys, I like to call us firefighters. We are constantly putting out our clients' fires. And with that being said, it's worth turning off your notifications. So there's no fires that are going to be so big that they need to be done right now. So turn off your distractions. If you need a drink of water or hit the restroom, now's your chance. Run and go do that, because we're going to dive in here, and I don't want you to miss out on something because you got distracted. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about, why do smart attorneys stay stuck? And this was a really hard thing for me when I first started practicing, because I feel like to become an attorney, you have to be smart, right? You didn't get into law school because you were dumb. And so why do we struggle so much? And I think everyone here can think of at least one attorney, maybe yourself included, that sees attorneys feeling stuck. They see attorneys burned out. They see attorneys working too hard and not getting paid very much. And this was something that really I struggled with for a long time, because I had a lot of mentors when I first started practicing that would, show me their books and talk about things. And I'm like, man, that sucks. There was one attorney, his name's Chris, just like me. And he'd been practicing for 25 years. And he showed me his books, because he was showing me like a bookkeeping and stuff, but he grossed $180,000 that year. And honestly, it broke my heart, because I was in my second year of practice at the time, and I was already on track to do over that my second year in practice. My first year, I only did $74,000. So, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But by that second year, I was already on track to outperform this attorney had been doing it for 25 years. And it's one thing to be struggling in your first and second year. It's quite another to be struggling 25 years later. So why is that? Why do we struggle so much? We have an advanced degree. We sell things at an expensive price. Why do we struggle so much? And the cool thing is once you understand why, you can also then understand why, no matter how much experience you have or hard work, dedication, devotion, whatever, discipline, you haven't been able to fix it. And that's because from the very beginning, from law school, we were taught how to solve problems, but not how to run a business. And if you started working for a law firm, that didn't help, right? Law firms taught you to trade your time for money. And therefore, you end up being as inefficient as possible, right? The longer it takes, the more you get paid. From day one, you were literally taught to trade time for money. In fact, your local bar association probably has articles and stuff out there on why you should trade your time for money instead of solving people's problems. It's kind of crazy when you look at it, right? Because of that, the billable hour literally rewards you for being less efficient. If you're anything like me, your early mentors doubled down on that advice and gave you some pretty bad advice on how to run a business. At the end of the day, you inherited a model that breaks as you grow. So every old fix you've thought of and tried to apply didn't work because the system that you were given didn't work. The nice thing is when you're able to fix the system, it's actually very doable. It's very, very doable on how to get past that. So the other fallacy I want to address before we dive in is that attorneys don't lack time. They lack a value-based operating system. So every single person has 24 hours in a day. And I've spent a lot of time pondering and thinking about why, even though we all have 24 hours in a day, why do some people make $100 million a year, $100 million in a weekend? I don't know if anybody saw that, but Alex Hormozi sold over $100 million of his books in 72 hours. While other people are barely, making 15 to 20,000 a year. We all have the same amount of time. So time isn't the constraint. Effort's not the constraint, right? I don't know if you've seen, but I was a busser at a restaurant, and I feel like I worked my guts out. Back then I made $8 an hour, and I felt good about my $8 an hour. But I worked my guts out. So it wasn't that I wasn't working hard. I probably worked harder as a busser back then than I do now. But at the end of the day, it was the system. And was the value I provided, right? Helping people get their kids back from Egypt is worth a whole lot more than cleaning up food off of a table. And so we're going to talk about how to get your time back, but we're going to do that based off of value. And that way you can spend less time on the things that aren't as valuable so that you can spend it on the things that are. So if we fix the system, the time actually just comes back automatically. So, and why this actually matters, because time isn't just hours, it's leverage, it's energy, and it's choice. That's what I really want to think about today, is because we all have the same amount of hours, I want us to really think about how we're using them and how we're leveraging those hours to give us the best possible results. Because I'll tell you, if you're spending too much time at work, if you're spending too much time on high stress activities that zap your energy, it's really hard to go home and be present with your kids. And a lot of you have said that. Jennifer said, I want to be a better parent, right? We've seen vacations, leisure activities, kids, everything, pursue new hobbies, exercise, read more books. A lot of you are saying these things, right? You have a desire to do those things. If you've zapped all of your energy at work, it's really hard to go home and do those things. And what you end up doing is, even when you do get home, you end up, eating microwave takeout and watching TV because you just can't, right? I don't know if you've ever said that. I just can't. So that's why this matters so much to me, is that when we reinvest our time in the right things, we actually have the energy. And that's one of the crazy things I've noticed. Like, as I've done more of the right things, I actually have more energy throughout the day, which means I end up having more hours in the day. Instead of just sitting on the couch and watching TV at night, I'm doing other things, which means I reclaim those hours as well. So not only am I making more money up front and having better physical health, but I've reclaimed hours on the back end because I have the energy to do stuff during that time instead of just lounge around. So who am I? That being said, right, we've talked a lot about the why, but you're probably wondering, should I even listen to this guy, right? And so I wanted to do a quick introduction of who I am for those who don't know. These are some of the words that I think define and describe me the best, starting off with my relationship with those around me, the ways I earn money, right? The things I enjoy doing, and then some of my favorite stuff, Star Wars and sweats. So my son literally asked me the other day, I was wearing that black sweatsuit there on the bottom left picture. And my son asked me why I was dressed so nice. It did make me rethink my wardrobe choices. But that's me and my family and some of the things we love to do. From a achievement standpoint, built a 7-figure family law firm. I did that without advertising. So I spent no money on ads, which allowed me to be incredibly profitable. Obviously, all for if you want to run ads and scale that way. I'm not saying you can or shouldn't do that. I'm just saying I didn't need that to get to 7 figures. And I did so working only about 5 to 10 hours a week. And this year we've actually merged with another law firm into a multi-million-dollar firm, helping people all across the state now in Utah. It's kind of a fun thing that's still being announced. So a lot of people haven't even heard it yet. This is probably the first place that a lot of people have heard it, unless you were inside Attorney Freedom University. But done a lot of fun things there. And why I do what I do now is I learned the hard way that I was a lot happier when I finally was helping other people grow their business. And I got burned out in my practice. And we're going to talk about that more in a little bit, but got pretty burned out, and so scaled back quite a bit, and then realized that it wasn't the law that I hated. It was how I was practicing it that I hated. And so I now help other people do the same. Like, this is kind of my passion. It's funny how I can be working on this until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm still going strong. My wife has to remind me to go to sleep because I just love this stuff so much. And for me, it's really that, time freedom isn't about doing less. It's about doing more of what you love. And so, but it didn't always start that way. And I like to point this out because at first I really sucked. I am not someone who is just naturally gifted at this. There are some people, whether they have incredible business skills or they're incredibly attractive and everybody wants to talk to them, whatever that is, that was not me. Okay. So I was really good at negotiations in law school. So I did have a skill set there that is unique. Because of that, I had some job interviews with some of the big law firms in San Antonio. I was looking to do mergers and acquisitions, use those negotiation skills, thinking of, Suits and all those fun TV shows where you see them negotiating these multi-million-dollar deals. But the last firm I interviewed with, they literally said, say goodbye to your family for the next 3 years. My son was 6 months old at the time. And I said, pass. I'm not doing that. Like, I will not say goodbye to my family for 3 years. No amount of money is worth that. I was offered, it would have been about $180,000 a year at that job. But decided not to do that, moved back to Utah, took the bar exam here, applied for jobs, and the best job offer I got was for $50,000. One of the job offers I got was for $35,000. I was like, no way. There's no way. I went to 4 years of college, probably 5 years of college. It took me a little longer than most to get through college. And 3 years of law school to make $35,000 a year. Not going to do that. So I'm like, for that little, I am going to start my own business. So I started my own firm fresh out of school and proceeded to suck. I grossed $74,000 that first year. I was only able to keep about $17,000 of that as profit, which if you do the math is only slightly over minimum wage. And that's when I realized that being a good lawyer, it doesn't mean you're good at business. My wife and I sat down that day, and luckily we had some pretty low expenses. We were living in a apartment above a commercial building. My in-laws owned the building, and I knew they wouldn't evict their grandson. So pretty cheap rent and pretty safe setup allowed me to take these risks. But I mean, my wife and I openly admitted, we didn't do all of this for minimum wage. I either need to figure out how to do this or I need to go get a job. I did apply for a bunch of jobs, and luckily I didn't get any jobs, or I probably would have took them. And then I started studying business. I was like, okay, while I'm waiting for a job offer, I'm going to start studying business. I learned that first year that attorneys really suck at business. And so I started studying business from non-attorneys. I think that's the biggest secret and the biggest advantage I had in my career, is that I quickly started studying business from non-attorneys. As I did that, my business started growing. It started growing pretty quickly. I was able to do, like I said, by the end of year 5, I was doing $500,000 a year, only working 10 to 20 hours a week, depending on the week. At that point, I'd always been taught that working less and earning more was the goal. And so that's what I did. I worked less and earned more. Like I said, I got to 10, 15 hours a week, and I played a ton of video games at work. My wife hates when I admit this because she hates video games, but I didn't know any better. So I'm playing all these video games at work. I got really good at League of Legends, incredibly nerdy video game, and had a blast and was completely depressed. That's the truth. I never felt like I was someone who could claim depression. My mom even talks about how most of the things didn't rattle me as a kid. But I was pretty depressed. I even looked into meeting with a counselor and getting on some depression meds because I just wasn't in a good place. And that's when I had to learn that, again, working less was not the goal. It was doing more of what you love. And so it was during that time that I started expanding and looking to see what I wanted to do. I was helping. I had an associate that worked for me, and then he got a job offer somewhere else and took it, and that wasn't nearly as good of an offer as they promised him. And so he then started doing his own thing, and I started helping him with his business. And I realized that as I was applying the principles I'd learned over the last 5 years in his business, he got to skip the learning curve. He was starting to make more. Within just a couple months of us working together, he was making more than that other Chris in town. And I was like, man, this is fun. I enjoy helping other people. So that's when I started pivoting to coaching. So this work isn't about escaping your firm. And hopefully by the end of it today, you can see that if you hate the law right now, it may not be the law that you hate. It may be how you're practicing it. And when we change that, you may love it, because that happened for me. When I changed how I practiced the law, I ended up loving it. Now I only take a couple of cases now because I'm running 3 businesses, but I actually love the practice of law now. And it provides me the time, money, and energy to do what I love. So but I want to share this with you at the beginning, because sometimes people see that and they're like, well, there's no way I could do that. And I can promise you, I'm not diagnosed, but I'm self-diagnosed ADD. Definitely did not work crazy hours. And I could do it. And if I can do it, I guarantee most of the people here are harder working and more willing to sacrifice than I was. So if I can do it, I know you can too. So what are the 3 main shifts that we're going to talk about in this event? Kind of the 3 secrets, as you may. The first is that the practice of law trains you to sell time, not outcomes. And this is, again, the biggest mindset shift that we need to fix. Now, I don't want you to think that what I'm saying here is you have to bill flat fee. Flat fees are a great way to fix this problem. But you don't have to do that. Some of my most successful clients here in our program are actually personal injury attorneys with contingency fees. But we have a lot of attorneys who still bill by the hour. And some of the attorneys that I look up to the most, Marco Brown, Elise Bowie, they still have hourly billing business models running multi-million-dollar law firms. And so, but you still have to fix the mindset of trading time for money. And we're going to talk about why. I'd love to hear, as you guys are here, and this is going to be our second round of giveaways, because I've been talking for a little bit and I want to make sure we keep everyone excited and engaged. So anybody who answers this question will be submitted for another chance to win a book. But how do you bill? So do you bill hourly? Do you bill flat fee? Do you bill contingency? Do you bill a mix of both or a mix of all? Just put into the chat, whichever chat you're here on, how do you bill? Hourly, flat fee, contingency. Anybody who answers that question, again, will be submitted for a drawing on to win one of those books we talked about at the beginning. So I'd love to hear how you guys bill. And we can make this work no matter which way you bill, but I am interested in how you bill. So that's the first secret we're going to cover. The next one then is time is reclaimed by removing work, not adding habits. So this is the biggest reason I see like New Year's resolutions and things fail. This is the whole reason we created this event in the first place, was that if you try to set a goal and add it to what you're already doing, you're going to fail because you're already too busy. So trying to add something to your already full plate, something has to fall off. And either you have to have a bad habit fall off and you get lucky that it fell off, or you intentionally remove something off the plate. But at the end of the day, if your plate is full, something has to come off in order to put something on. And so by what we're going to do, that time freedom audit in the second section here, we're going to show you how to take the right things off your plate so that you can put the things on there that you want on there, whether that's sleep, spending time with your family, working out, whatever that is. It starts by removing things first so that you don't try to overwhelm an already busy schedule. I truly think that attorneys are unique here in the fact that we are significantly busier than the average person. And I think that's the case because of the high stress deadline nature of our practice, added in with the fact that we have constant fires that need to be put out. There's an incredible demand on our time. And so I think this secret is important for everybody. But when it comes to attorneys, I think this is one of the most important things we can do. And then, like I said, my goal really here is to help you find a way to practice the law the way that you love. And maybe that is for me personally, I love the business side of the practice. And I have a lot of people in Attorney Freedom University that feel the same way. They have realized that they love running a law firm. They don't love practicing law. And that's okay. So now they own a law firm that they love. Other people realize that they hate the business of law and they love the practice of it. And we can then go in and hire managers and those types of things to take those other stuff off their plate. There's no right or wrong answer there. It's just that you can love what you do. You can reap a nice, significantly beneficial financial benefit and still love it with your law license. If you're missing any of those, though, you're probably going to feel like no matter what you do, just doesn't stick. Something fails. This is going to show you why. So jumping into secret one, the old way of practicing law trained you to sell time, not outcomes. Nice thing is this was learned. You didn't choose this. And it made sense early, but it breaks at scale. And you'll see this frequently, right? As people are first starting out practicing, that they feel like they're making pretty good money pretty quickly. Like to get to $10,000 a month, that's really easy as an hourly billed person, right? You get a couple of jobs, you bill a couple of people. Next thing you know, you're at $10,000 a month and you're feeling pretty good. When I first started practicing, my goal was $10,000 a month. I was like, that's all I need. I don't need a ton of money. I just need $10,000 a month. Now I didn't realize, again, I sucked at business. So $10,000 a month gross revenue is not $10,000 a month in your pocket. And so had to fix that real quick. I learned that the hard way. But the nice thing to know is that this was learned, right? This wasn't something that this was forced upon you in starting in law school when you first started practicing. But this is one of the biggest culprits of stealing your time. So the real enemy then is this time for money model. And the problem with it is that time becomes the product, right? People are then paying you for your time. The bargain for exchange is your time for money. But that's not what they actually want, right? In fact, one of the things I have found here is that, tell me this, if I could today, by the end of this webinar, give you 10 hours a week back, is that worth more than being able to give you 10 hours a week back in 3 months? That's not a hypothetical. You can drop this in the comment. Is it worth more now or is it worth more in 3 months? Anything, any deliverable. Yes, obviously, right? Now is worth more because, but attorneys get paid to take longer. So an attorney would get paid more if it took 3 months instead of 1 day. So because of that, we end up being rewarded for inefficiency. And efficiency actually reduces your income. Growth reduces your income. And you'll see this. This came from, if you look back over the history of how attorneys got paid, it's only very recently that we started getting paid by the hour. And it was a great way for us to bill insurance companies and get paid more. It rewarded documentation, not outcomes, but it made it predictable for insurance companies and their actuaries to figure out how much something was going to cost, right? And so it's sadly, the change here, though, if you look at how much attorneys made in relation to other professionals before the change and after the change, it has greatly hurt our profession. So my dad was an orthodontist. He worked 14 days a month, made about $300,000 a year at the time. I looked as of last night at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and lawyers were by far the lowest paid professional for the same amount of education. And the crazy thing is how much more time we worked. We make just a little bit less than dentists, a lot less than doctors. Doctors do go to a little bit more schooling than we do, though, right? But the crazy thing that I was looking at there is that most of these doctors and dentists were only working 3 to 4 days a week, making more than we were at 5 to 6 days a week. And so this time for money model was never designed to create freedom. And the biggest reason here is that what we ended up doing by accident is we broke this value price cost equation here. So when you go to the doctor, like I broke my foot, right? Broke a little bone on the side of my foot, super hurt. So what did I want to have happen? I wanted my foot to stop hurting and I wanted to be able to play basketball again, right? So outcome that I desired was my foot stopped hurting. So I go to the doctor and I pay whatever the cost is to get my foot back, right? And the doctor comes in, and the nurse did a bunch of stuff. And then the doctor came in for like 5 minutes. He probably only spent 5 minutes actually working on my foot. It's actually a good buddy of mine from high school. So we spent longer than that chatting. And then, gave me a boot and stuff. And I went on my way. And in total, he probably spent 30 minutes working on my foot over the multiple visits that I went on. I paid about $1,500 to get all the stuff that I needed to fix that injury. But at no point did I ask how many minutes or how many hours did he work on my foot? Because at the end of the day, I wanted a fixed foot. My foot did, in fact, get fixed. I now play basketball 3 to 4 times a week again. And I was happy to pay $1,500 to fix my foot. However, when we switched to the billable hour, what we did is we linked price to the cost to us, not to the outcome to the client. And so I say the perfect business is a business where the value is up here at the very top and the client gets an awesome outcome, right? You get 10 hours a week back. Your clients, we had a case where the mom fled to Egypt and we had to get the mom back, non-extradition country. She literally got married there. So she had no intent of coming back. Funny enough, if you know the story, I actually represented mom, the attorney who works for me now. He was opposing counsel at the time and he represented the dad. So he worked with me. I actually convinced her to get back to America. He was working with the FBI that they were going to seize her at the consulate's office. And I was able to get her on a plane and get her back across the border 12 hours before they flagged her passport. If she had taken the next flight, they would have snagged her at the airport. But I was able to get her back in time. But his client paid $5,000 to get his kid back. People are more than happy to get your kid back. Value from Egypt, super high. How much are you willing to pay for that, right? The value of getting your kid back from Egypt is exponential. $50,000, $100,000, right? Never seeing your kid again. What would you pay to see your kid if you had the chance of never seeing them again? You would pay an infinite amount of money probably to get your kid back. So the value was super high. The price, $5,000, way less than what they received, right? Now the problem with the legal industry is that the cost is directly linked to the price. So you never get a gap between price and cost. But the perfect business would have a huge gap between value and price and a big gap between price and cost. And so that's what we're here to fix. Even if you're billing by the hour, we're going to talk about how to fix this so that when you're talking to your clients, they can understand the value and therefore make a decision on price at the right time. One of the reasons your clients are unhappy is because of how you're delivering this price to cost ratio as well. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but I wanted to kind of tease it now. So yes, I couldn't remember if it was the next slide or not. So it is. Why this is the case, right? And again, I like to use this Egypt case as an example is when he delivered the price, he said, hey, look, it's going to be a lot of work. We got to get the FBI involved. We got to do these things. It's going to be $5,000. And the person, no doubt, okay, whatever I need to do. He called friends and family. You call up your friends and family and say, hey, my wife took my kid to Egypt. She's never coming back. I need $5,000 to get her back. Will you help me get my kid back? Friends and family helped pitch in whatever needed, right? They came up with the money. He did the work, got his kid back, right? Now, where most attorneys deliver the price is not upfront, right? So you say, yeah, no problem. I can help you. You already have $1,500 in your trust. So we're not even going to talk about money right now. And then you go do $5,000 worth of work and then you send them an invoice and your invoice is detailed, right? I mean, I'm assuming all of you guys are good attorneys and you don't just write worked on motion 5 hours, right? Like you've probably spent a lot of time improving what you write in your invoices to explain what you're doing. So you've done those things, fill it out. Well, now all the client sees is motions, hearings, $5,000. Had 15 in trust, so now I owe you $3,500. Did you really do enough work to justify $3,500, right? If you notice the words that your clients say when they're complaining about their bill, it's always about the cost to you. It's never about the value they got. It's always about, did you really spend that much time? How much time does it really take to draft a motion and show up to a hearing, right? That it's because we've anchored them on the wrong thing. So when we get here, right, that in fact, the faster you are, which is more valuable to them, the more they complain about your bill. Because how is it possible that you worked 8 hours yesterday? There's no way you worked all 8 hours on my case, right? They're linked to the wrong thing, which is why they're so frustrated. One of my favorite things about changing how I think about my invoices and how I bill my clients is not only do I get paid more, but I have significantly fewer client complaints. And it's because they get to have the value conversation up front. They understand what things are worth. And if it's not worth it, they know beforehand. And so we just don't do the work. And that's a win as well, right? The worst thing you can do is do work and not get paid for it. And so, and your client's mad about it because of how expensive it was. So I'd rather not do the work and not get paid than do the work and not get paid. Now, if you're not going to get paid, do all of the things that you put in that list before, right? Your hobbies, exercising, reading books, spending time with family. If you're not getting paid, do those things. Don't work for free. Why is this not moving forward? There we go. So, and then like we said, efficiency is punished. We've talked about this enough. We're skipping this slide. You pause the replay and read this slide if you want, because we've talked about that enough already. So secret number 2, why most of you are here, right? Time is reclaimed by removing work, not adding habits. And that's why I use that full plate analogy is you only have so much time in the day. At least some of that time has to be used on sleep. My favorite answer, not once when I was doing this, did I think about sleep as the something that someone would say. So kind of fun for me that someone said that. But some of that time, your 24 hours is going to be used on sleep. Some of it's going to be used on eating, whatever it is that you get ready, right? So that plate is full currently. So what are we going to remove from that plate? What are we going to remove from those 24 hours so that you can achieve your goals? And that is the time freedom audit, right? So, but before we do that, I just wanted to hit some of these last couple why things, and then we're going to jump into the audit. So, because if you're out there and you're reading a bunch of books or other things on this, and I would love to know, what are your favorite books on whether it's practice management or just business in general? If there's a book that you love when it comes to business and goal setting, whatever, just kind of self-development, right? What's your favorite books? This is going to help you understand why, even if you've read a bunch of those books, they may not have stuck yet. And it's because a lot of those books, they assume that you have time to implement what they're teaching you. They not once teach you how to clear up your time so that you can apply what they've learned. So for example, one of my favorite books on how to run a business is Traction, the Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman. For anybody who's read that book will know, like, they have quarterly meetings and weekly meetings and KPIs and all these things, right? If you look into that system, the Happier Attorney. Yeah, that's a great one. If you look into that system, it takes about 10 to 15 hours a week to truly implement. So who here already has 10 hours a week to implement things? I'm guessing you don't, because the whole purpose of this meeting is to reclaim 10 hours a week, right? And so what I've seen is people read that book, they get really excited about it, they go to implement it, and they try to add 10 to 15 hours a week to their already full plate. And then what falls off? Well, if you don't intentionally take something off of your plate, then the newest things that you put on the plate are the ones that fall off first, right? It's just like putting a piece of food at the top of a plate. If it's already over full, the stuff on the top is what falls off, right? And so that's why these things aren't working. It's because you didn't remove something so that there was room for it to do it. So you can't schedule yourself out of overwhelm. So the real constraint then, if you're not making as much money as you want, if you're not if you're not in the shape that you want, if you don't have the relationship with your kids that you want, if you don't have X, then the reason is not time, it's the value you're receiving for those hours, right? You're burned out, and so you watch TV instead of spend time with your kids, or you're not making enough money per hour, so you have to work more hours in order to make enough money. Whatever it is, right? The value per hour is not high enough. And if you only get one thing from this training, I hope it's that. It's that you are capable of and deserve and are worth more than you think you are. And some hours are just worth more than others, right? When I was a busser, I should have only gotten paid $8 an hour. That's not that I am worth $8 an hour. I, as a human being, am priceless, but the value I delivered to that company was only worth $8 an hour. And does that mean that I'm stuck at $8 an hour the rest of my life? No, right? I went and learned additional skills. I learned how to be more valuable, and I earned more money. So I showed the same thing here in your firm, right? If you're doing administrative tasks, right? If you are the one managing your email inbox, if you're the one putting stamps and taking things to the post office, if you're the one doing those administrative tasks, those can be done for $6 to $8 an hour, which means you are the administrator. You are only getting paid $6 an hour for every time you do one of those tasks. Now, as a paralegal, right? Paralegals get paid more. They can do more. What they do is more valuable. But there are things that only attorneys can do that paralegals can't do, which is why attorneys get paid more, because they're more valuable. And even at the attorney level, a new attorney is not as good as an experienced attorney. And after becoming an attorney and doing well at that, managing attorneys is worth more than doing the work, right? If I can inspire the attorneys that work for me, I spend about 4 hours a week training and inspiring the attorneys who work for me. Those 4 hours produce about $15,000 a week in billables for the two attorneys that we're talking about here. So instead of making $500 an hour, right, I am making $3,000 an hour, give or take. And then even going up from one level from there, owning a firm, being the CEO. If you think of like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, as polarizing as he is, or I can't think of the guy from Apple for some reason. These people who were the visionaries for the firm, those things were even more valuable. So the real constraint here is the value per hour that you're spending. Now, I want you to start thinking, because we're about to do the audit, right? So one of the things we're going to talk about is how much your time is actually worth. So if you need to pull up a QuickBooks or something, now's your chance to do it. Because I'm going to ask you a question of how much time do you think the average attorney gets paid, like collects money in their pocket for every 8 hours that they work? Now, if you've been to one of my presentations, you probably know the answer to this. We're going to calculate this for you specifically, Steve Jobs. Yes, Pamela, thank you for filling in the blanks. I could not remember Steve Jobs' name, so thank you. But one of the things we're going to do in the audit is figure out how much your time has actually been worth. And so if you don't know how much you made last year, now's your chance to look it up. That's going to be data you're going to need here in a little bit. But right before we do that, I want you guys to put in the chat. And again, you answer this question, you're going to be put in for another drawing for the book. How many hours do you think the average attorney puts in their pocket? They get paid, they earn, they collect, whatever you want to say, for every 8 hours that they work. So you can't say day, right? Because some people work 4 hours a day, some people work 10 hours a day. And so Clio, their report is where I got this answer. But how many hours do you think they put in their pocket for every 8 hours they work? So if you can answer that and put that in the chat, you're going to be entered to win a book as well. Each time we do this, these are additional books. It's not just one book that we're giving away to everybody who answered. Each time we do one of these, we're going to do a new drawing for the books. Like I said, Alina's the one managing that in the back end. She's going to message you directly if you won. But I want to know. No one has answered yet. I'm curious, have you not answered because you don't know or because you're scared to answer? There we go. Finally, someone answered. They said 4 hours, which is a really good guess. It's not what you think it is. And yeah. So Les is 1.5, 2.5. Bonnie, 2 hours Midwest. Good. Okay. I'm not going to answer the question yet because I want to give you guys a chance to keep guessing, because everybody who guesses gets a chance to win one of those books. So we're going to answer that here soon. All right. The audit. So we're going to jump into the audit now. Like I said, we're going to do it together. So if you're here and you didn't pay for the VIP, we will do the audit together. If you want a copy of the workbook, it's part of that VIP upgrade. And so I put the link there. And maybe Alina can add it to the chat as well. So if you want the copy of the workbook, you can snag that VIP upgrade. I think it's $49 or something. It's nothing crazy. And awesome. Okay. So I'm going to throw this workbook just right over the top. Like I said, the original name of this event was the Anti-Resolution Retreat. The copy of the workbook that I downloaded still says that name. The contents inside are the same. So if your cover looks different or something, that's why. I just didn't have time to go download the new one. So like I said, it was quite the journey as we how this event got put together. A lot of good guesses. Everybody's guessed so far between about 1 and 4 hours. So I love your guys' guesses. So working through this workbook, yeah, Alina is confirming that the new one with the new cover is out there. I just stole the wrong one. So you're getting the raw version of this because I didn't want to go find it. So, all right. The first page here is all about like goal setting. And I just wanted to I find that it's easier to follow through with things if you have a powerful reason why you're doing it, right? So that's why this stuff is here. So whether you're using the workbook or you're taking notes, I'm gonna have to like talk over here on this side of the screen for a second so I can see the workbook here. But it's saying why do you want this year to be better than other years? And then you just kind of pick some of those things, like what would a better year look like for you? Okay. And it can be more money, it can be these other things. But I find that even if it is a money goal, I like really thinking about like, what would I do with that money? Right. Some people are saying zoom in. So let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that's better. Yeah, looks like that's better. Okay. Thanks for the feedback. So when you're doing this though, I want measurable results. So if you want this year to be better than last year, what does that mean to you? Right. So like when I was first doing this and was first stuff, like I really wanted to make more money. And when I started making more money, I got really complacent. And for those who know me, I've told a lot of these stories over the years. So I keep saying for those who know, because I feel like I'm repeating stories, but most people probably haven't heard them. But I was super motivated to pay off my house. Kind of silly because my house was at 3% interest rate. And I think we had a 15-year mortgage and our payment was still only $2,500 a month. But super motivated to pay it off. That was just, my wife and I really don't like debt. And so we set a goal to pay off our house by the end of that year. We did not pay it off by the end of the year, but we paid it off by the end of the next year. We had about $220,000 that we owed on it. We paid it off. We paid it off the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the second year. So it took us, we started in February of the first year and went to November of the October, right? November. Yeah, November of the next year. I totally mixed up Thanksgiving and Halloween in my head there for a second. Paid off our house. Like that's what motivated me. When I paid off my house, I had that goal for almost 2 years and I was motivated and excited. My wife and I were working on it together and we had a blast. So we pay off the house right before Thanksgiving. I then, took Thanksgiving off. We then went on vacation after Thanksgiving and before Christmas. And then I took a bunch of time off for Christmas. And so I hardly worked from November until the end of the year just because of vacations and stuff. So between having my goal completed and not working a bunch, when I hit January the next year, I had the hardest time getting back into things. I just had no motivation to make money. And it took me almost 6 months to figure out what I was going to do next with my life, and get excited to work again. And so I wish someone had helped me think through these things at that time. It would have helped speed things up, which is why I'm sharing that with you now. But then we've got the attorney freedom calculator here, right? So we're going to skip through the sales language and go straight into it. So the first thing, I'm going to zoom out just a hair so you can kind of see what this is, and then we can get down to the specifics. But the first thing we want to audit is you as a person. And so, man, it's just like the camera is right in front of it. So I keep like doing this thing, but so when I do these audits, generally I would have you do these for 2 weeks, and no one likes doing them for 2 weeks. But the reason that we do it that way is when you first start doing it, you're going to change your behavior merely because you're tracking it, which is cool. After you've been tracking for about 3 to 5 days, you'll start falling back into your old bad habits, and you'll finally be able to see what's really going on in your life. And so if you track what you're doing for 2 weeks, then you'll get a really good picture of what is your lowest hanging fruit. Now, I can't on a 3-hour call have you track something for 2 weeks, right? So instead, I simplified this so that you could get some really good data based off of past history, and at least start making some good decisions today. And so that's what these questions are here, is how many hours did you work on billable work? Now, that Clio report, right? They talk about total hours billed, and then like if you worked for 4 hours on billable work, how many of those hours showed up on the invoice, right? Because inevitably we discount things and we know bill and stuff, right? So if you worked for 4 hours, how many of those are on the invoice? That's what's called your utilization rate. And then of the hours that make it on the invoice, how many of those hours did you collect? So the polls are closed. Everyone who has put their guesses in has a chance to win. Drum roll, please. The answer for collection rate is 2.1 hours for every 8 hours that you work. I want you to think about that for a second. You work for 8 hours and you get paid for 2 of them. That's a 25% effective rate. Meaning for every day that you work, 6 of your hours you did not get paid for. Now, there are always going to be things that you do in the business that you don't get paid for, like running payroll, right? No one pays you to run payroll. But if you don't run payroll, then your employees will stop working for you, right? So there are always going to be some things. So when I first started practicing as a coach, I had a mentor. They were helping me with things. And the first offer that we created was, I will double your revenue in 30 days. Super gimmicky. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but the principle rings true. And I want to show you how I did that. And I had a very high success rate. Over 90% of the people I worked with, we would double the revenue in 30 days. Back then, the number was 1.9 instead of 2.1. So we have gotten better as an industry slightly at our collection rate. But what I did is, which is now, we're going to talk about the 4x4 rule now. But the 4x4 rule came from this practice. I would make attorneys who worked with me only work on cases that had money in trust for 4 hours a day. And so they would literally like block the time off on their calendar of income time. And that's what we called it, was just, you are going to earn income during this time. And the rules were, you were not allowed to work on a case that hadn't prepaid for the services or in which you were guaranteed to get paid, right? Like I had one client who had a government contract. So the government doesn't prepay, but they were going to pay every single time. And like contingency fees and that kind of stuff, there's exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, they either prepaid for the service or you were guaranteed to get paid. And if you didn't get paid on a bill, we talked about why and figured out why, so that never happened again. Well, what did I do there? If you're looking here, they blocked off 4 hours on their calendar. They then worked for 4 hours. 4 is twice as many as 1.9. Because they had dedicated that time to earning, at the end, we blocked off an extra half an hour where they would then update the invoices, and they weren't allowed to finish what they were doing until 4 hours had ended up on an invoice. So their utilization rate was 100% because we'd forced it. I preloaded this, right? And their collection rate was 100% because the cases already had money in trust. So you just invoiced the trust at the end of the billing cycle, right? And I know that 4 is twice as many as 1.9, and therefore they doubled their income in 30 days. This worked for every single case, every single client that had enough work. Now, the only time it didn't work is when people didn't have enough work. Now, does that number, 2.1, does that number seem low or high to you? Whenever I ask this question, whenever I teach this the first time, most attorneys tell me that this number seems low. There's no way that that's the number that they're doing. And I'm not surprised to see that a lot of people on here said 4. Most people will say that they think they personally are making about 4 hours for every 8 hours that they work. So does that number seem low or high to you? Now, as those answers are coming in, let's figure it out. Now, Cassie did ask a good question. What if I don't know how many hours we worked? For now, let's just figure out how much money you made as if you worked an average number of hours, and then you can tweak this number if you think you work more or less than 40 hours a week. But if you take how much money you make last year, so that's why I said, hopefully you don't put this in the chat. You don't have to tell people. I mean, you can if you want to, but you don't have to. So if you work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and 50 weeks a year, that number is 2,000. So if you take how much money you earned last year, just take your total gross revenue and divide it by 2,000. That's going to be approximately how much you made per hour. So if you collected 200,000 last year and you divided it by 2,000, that would mean you made $100 an hour. Now, alternatively, now you can compare that to how much you bill per hour, right? So if you bill $400 an hour and you only collected 100 an hour, you're right on that 2.5 number. We can also go through and figure out, if you take 200,000 and you divide it by, or whatever your total yearly income is, and you divide it by your billable rate, let's say $400 an hour. I know the average is $495, but we're going to go low here. That would mean 500 hours. If you divided that by 50 weeks, that's 10 hours a week. And if you divide that by 5 days, that would be 2 hours a day, right? So a lot of different ways to do this, but I want you to don't just listen to this. If you're sitting there and haven't done the math, do the math right here, because I want this to sink in for a second. How many hours are you actually working? How many hours are you actually getting paid? Now, if you don't work a full 8 hours every single day, feel free to deviate from those numbers, right? But be honest with yourself. How many hours are you actually working, and how many hours are you actually getting paid? So I was doing this with somebody who was, they were on track to be partners with us, and I don't know if they're actually going to make it or not. But I was doing this number with him because he was making about 3.5 hours a day. He's like, oh yeah, I'm almost there at the 4. Then we started doing the math, and he was working like 11 hours a day. And when you do the ratio, he was right back down to like the 2.2, I think is what he was for every 8 hours he worked. So he was making more than 2 hours a day, but it wasn't because he was efficient. It was just he worked harder. He also worked Saturdays. And so he was, when you added in the Saturdays, his efficiency was way down. So do that. And if anyone's daring enough, I would love to hear what your number is. So for every 8 hours, or if you take your gross revenue and divide it by, the 2,000, like what numbers are you getting? And or you can answer whether you thought it was higher or lower than you thought it was going to be. Because if you only did one thing on this audit, knowing how much you got paid per hour and or knowing how many hours you got paid is going to be one of the most valuable things you do. So the reason I do it divided by the 2,000, even though that's not actually the hours per thing, that tells me how much your time is worth. Because once we know how much your time is worth, if we can find things that you're currently doing that you can delegate for less than that, then we can start delegating those things and getting time back. So I'm curious if anybody's going to be daring enough to share what their time was worth per hour or how many hours they were getting paid. But and if not, that's okay. I'm not going to force you to do it. So with this audit, what I want you to do is fill out the total number of hours you've spent on those things. And then from a scale of 0 to 5, how much do you enjoy doing those things? Do you love practicing law? Then that's a 5. If you hate the billing side of things, then it's a 0. Diane Martel in his book, Buy Back Your Time, does something similar here. The principles I got were from his book there. He does 1 to 5. Well, I do 0 because if you hate something, then it's a 0. It's not a 1. He just does like a $1 sign or $2 signs or $3 signs on the value. Well, one of the things I realized here was that truck just drove by with their differential, like scraping the ground. I don't think they realized that they're dragging a pole. That distracted me for a second. But I don't like the dollar signs for the value thing. And because what does that really mean? And what I noticed is a lot of people would spending time with their family and they would put $3 signs because that is an incredibly valuable thing. It's probably the most valuable thing, but it doesn't make you money. Right. And so I have changed it to just put a dollar amount. Right. So I worked. I do this when I'm actually tracking my time. So I track my time for 15 or 30 minutes and then I write how much money I made doing that. Right. I did a sales call and I closed a $5,000 client. That was $5,000. I did a sales call and didn't close a client. That's $0. And it really helped me understand what my time was worth and how much money I was making. And so I like to put that there. And so if it's something that's valuable intangibly, then I would, put a smiley face because it, or something like that. But if it's valuable as in dollars and cents, I really want you to start paying attention to, is the thing that I'm doing making me money? If not, is it something that I enjoy or that adds energy to my life? Like, I'm not like some woo-woo person. Like, I don't have energy. I don't know what that is, right? What I think of it is like when I get home from work, am I exhausted and the only thing I can do is sit on the couch? Or am I excited to do stuff with my kids? Because I'll be honest, I love my children. I love spending time with them. That is an energy draining activity for me, right? Like they're yelling, they're screaming, it's overstimulating. I need energy going into that activity to do it. It's still one of the things that are the most fulfilling thing in my life, but I need help. So I want you to start paying attention, because there's going to be a lot of things that you're doing during the day that are consuming time that are neither adding energy to your cup or adding money. So the biggest culprits are number 4 and number 5. So how much time do you spend on email every single day? You probably don't know this answer, and it is probably significantly more than you think it is. The average attorney spends between 2 and 4 hours every single day on their email. I spend 15 to 30 minutes. We actually have an SOP on how to manage your email inbox. And so I am happy to share that with you if you'd like it, because there's a lot of things that you can do to fix that. If you want that email SOP, just type email in the chat and I'll send it to you. That's I won't even charge you for it. I'm that passionate about email. If you're consumed with multiple hours a day on email, let's get that taken care of. That will reclaim. For the average attorney, just fixing their email will reclaim the 10 hours a week that they need. The other biggest culprit is screen time. So when I do this time and energy audit with my coaching clients, I'm actually going to pull that up. I'm going rogue. I'm going off script here for a second. So keep filling out this audit, and I'm going to pull it up so you can just see the difference on it. And let's be honest, I'm talking right now because I need you to have the time to fill this thing out. So if I go rogue, then that's fine. All right. Hopefully you're pretty close to being done with those anyways. Audit. So if you in the future decide to join the coaching program, you're going to get this full audit here where we actually do the same thing by time instead of task, right? So if you're tracking your time, we would do it this way because we're doing this in a call. I'm just having you come up with this information, but this would be better data, obviously, if you're real-time tracking it, right? At the end, and why I pulled this up is what we did with my team. This is one of my team's members' ideas. It wasn't mine, but they went in, and when they got to the office, they would write how much screen time they had on their phone. And then when they left the office, they wrote how much screen time they had on their phone. Now, this was not a trap. Hey, you spent all this time on your phone when you should have been working, right? This was something they decided to do because they wanted to see how much time they were wasting each day just on their phone. And during March Madness, one of my attorneys had like 4 to 5 hours a day on his phone, but it was March Madness, right? He just had the games running while he was doing other things. So that was high, right? But it was mind blowing to them how even just like little things, right? Like you'd hit the restroom and you all of a sudden that your potty break takes 15 minutes instead of 10 or instead of 5 because you're scrolling on your phone. Or, you go to check something and next thing you know, you're pulling up. Sorry, this fell over. Next thing you know, you're pulling up your phone and you scroll for 5 minutes before you catch yourself. It was crazy how many of these little things would step up. And then we did it. I was doing it as well from the time I got home to the time I went to bed, which is where most of my scrolling went, right? If you go check, you can actually go on your phone right now and just see how much time you're spending on screen time on average each day. Now, it does include things like Audible, right? So when you're listening to an audiobook, that counts as screen time, and that's not actually screen time, right? So you're going to have to play with it for a little bit. But again, the average person spends between 2 and 4 hours a day on their phone. So if you were just to fix your email and your screen time, that's going to be 10 to 20 hours a week fixed. You've reclaimed it right there. I have satisfied what I promised on giving you 10 hours a week. At the end of the day, fill these things out. You can add anything else in here that you want. I wanted you to do that. And then I wanted you to list what your energy adding activities are and those types of things, because I want you to start paying attention to what these things are and where you're spending your time. I am not saying that you should delete TikTok off of your phone. If TikTok is an energy adding activity for you, great. I'll tell you, if I stay up too late, when I wake up in the morning, there's nothing better than like 5 or 10 minutes of scrolling on my phone to get myself to wake up. And so I still do it. I have put a screen time limit on my phone that if I've been on Facebook or Instagram for a total of 15 minutes, it logs me out. Now I know the password, so I can log myself back in. The reason I did that is sometimes I would sit on my phone for more than 15 minutes and it would turn off, and I'd have to manually put the password in before I could do it again. That was just it was a way of waking me up and reminding me, like catching me so I didn't just doom scroll for an hour, right? So do that. And I want you to then list what are like some of your highest energy adding activities. So for me, I still love playing video games. And what I have found is that video games are one of the best way for me to turn my brain off. So if you're anything like me, like my brain is always going. It's just running. And the only way I can turn it off is if I get into something that requires a ton of attention. So I play super like mind intensive video games that suck me in, and it allows me to turn my brain off. Sometimes I'll do that if I've had a really tough day at work, especially like an emotionally draining, like tough day. I will play video games for 30 to 45 minutes to turn my brain off so I can go home and be present with my family. Now, I also know that I can get sucked into video games for 6 hours and then I feel drained even more, right? And so you can put whatever those things are, like whether it's going on a walk, going to the gym, doing a puzzle with your kid, whatever those are, start listing some of those energy adding activities. What are your favorite? And then really start deciding how you want your calendar to look. We're going to talk about the 4x4 rule in a little bit on how to create your calendar. So right now, what I want you to do is just pay attention to where your time's being spent. And then you're going to pick of the things that from this audit that are your lowest value time consuming activities, you're going to remove those. And then we're going to fill your calendar with the things that make the most for you. So there's just some reflection questions here. And I'm just going to put them over here to the side for a second so I can see them. And then I'll expand it again so you can see it. Again, if you want that VIP upgrade, the link is in the chat. You can download this if you want to fill it out. But what percentage of the hours that you're working on are you getting paid for? Again, the average is about 25%. What patterns do you see in how your time, money, and energy are being used? What activities produced the most return? And I'm reading these. I know you can see them, but if you're driving or something, I wanted you to verbally hear them as well. There's actually a lot of science that shows that if you read something, you retain like 5 to 10% of it. If you read and hear it, you retain like 30% of it. If you just hear it, you retain like 5 to 10%. If you just read it, it's like 5 to 10%. If you read and hear it, it's like 30%. If you read, hear it, and do it, like actually write it down, you retain like 70 something percent of it. And if you share it with other people, it gets up to like 90%. It's crazy once you start teaching other people. So what activities produce the most return as you're going through that? Like what are the things that are making you the most money? Now, again, I put time, money, and energy here, right? Because I want you to really spend some time. Okay, what are the things that you're doing that are making you the most money? What are also the things that are producing the most energy for you? Flip side, what activities drained you the most? Gave you the least return? Like for me, I hate drafting documents. I'm good at it. My team will say that. They're like, you should do this more. You're so good. I'm like, I hate it. Like I hate doing it. I will do anything else in this world until the very last second when I absolutely have to do it. Then I will draft the document, right? That is an incredibly draining activity for me. One of the things I also had to learn is I am a introvert by nature. What I mean by that is like they call it like an extroverted introvert. I love talking to people, whatever. Like this is fun for me. But it's also an energy draining activity for me. And so like if I go and hang out with my extended family, I actually really, I want to do that. I think it's important to do it, but it drains me. And so I've had to learn that that's an energy draining activity for me. And so even though I enjoy it and it's something good, right? Hanging out with my kids is an energy draining activity for me. They're loud and like, it's not that I don't love it. And I mean, it's one of the things I work towards doing more than anything else, but it drains my energy. So I need energy to go into it. And I may need to schedule something on my calendar after that to recover from it. And so I want you to really be paying attention to that. Just because you like something, just because something's important to you, doesn't mean it's not an energy draining activity. I need to shut my door. So keep filling these out. I'll shut my door real quick. All right. If you could remove or reduce one activity immediately, what would it be? So if you could just take something off your plate with no downside, what would you take off of your plate right now? If you could amplify one activity immediately, what would it be? So if you could do more of something without there being any downside, what would that be? I'm gonna expand this full page. I'm gonna give you guys like 30 more seconds to answer those questions. How are we going speed wise? Like if is this enough time to answer these questions? Are you guys ready for me to move on to the next page? Or you want me to slow down a little bit? Let me know what is best for you. And the live streams are a little bit behind me speaking. So it's always tough. I ask a question and then it's like 30 seconds before you see the question. And then you have to type your answer. So sometimes it can take like a whole minute for you to actually respond on this. But I don't want to go too fast if I'm give you like 15 more seconds and then I'll jump to the next page unless I hear from someone. All right. The feedback I've gotten is that it's good enough. So I'm going to keep going. Perfect. So with that information in mind, let's talk about the 4x4 rule. There's a slide on this as well. Again, the people who get the VIP upgrade will get a copy of the slides, which is why I put it there. I think the data on this page is a little bit better than the slide. So we're going to stick to this page, but we got it both places. So what is the 4x4 rule? What I learned by coaching people was that, one, if I can get you to bill 4 hours a day on cases that only have money and trust, you'll make 4 hours, you'll double your income. If you start doing the math of 4 times your billable rate, that's going to be how much you make. If you have somebody who's working for you and you can get them to do the same thing, pretty much every person I know, if they're billing enough for their services and they and their paralegal are both billing 4 hours a day, they should be pretty close, if not over 10,000 a week. So we have a program dedicated to helping people get to $10,000 a week. We can talk about that more later if you want to, but the core principle is this, and then I make sure you get paid enough for the work you're doing and it works. But what this really is from a principle basis, not selling coaching services, just so you can implement this right now, is spend half of your time working on the business. On the business means like you're the CEO. Those are your non-income producing activities, specifically the ones that, bring in clients, marketing and advertising, payroll, meetings with your staff, whatever that is, being the CEO. And the other half of your day needs to be working in the business as an attorney, making money. So effectively, with this in mind, you have to be super critical that you get paid for the work that you're doing. If you want to do work pro bono / maybe I'll get paid, it can't be during these 4 hours. They got to go during your on the business time, which you're going to have a lot of things to do and you may not have enough. So Sierra, for those who have heard stories over the years, you've almost guaranteed you've heard of Sierra. She went from 0 to 500,000 in her very first year of practice. How we did that was the 4x4 rule. It was really fun for me because she was actually my second coaching client ever. And it took me 5 years to get to 500,000 and it took her 1 year to get to 500,000. And it made me think like, wow, by paying for coaching, she removed 5 years of learning curve. And I took how much money I made over my first 5 years and compared it to how much money she would make over 5 years if she made 500,000 a year. So like and to see how much it cost me to not know how to make 500,000 a year or 10,000 a week. And it was 2.1 million. It cost me $2.1 million to not know how to make $500,000 my first year, compared to how much I actually earned. So it was a very eye-opening experience to me of why you have people help you and you don't be stubborn like I was. But this is what we did. We just did that. We worked on it. Now, when she did that, She then only had about an hour a day that she could spend on non-income producing work. Like that was it. And so she booked it. So she, met with her team and did those things and did some marketing and advertising, did her BNI networking group, did those things. And then for 1 hour a day, she had a spot. So any consultations she did during that time, any current clients that weren't paying, she did during that time. And she told her current clients that I have 1 hour a day. And so if you're not paying, then I will get to you during that 1 hour. And if I can't, I'll get to you during the next 1 hour. And if I can't, I'll get to you eventually. If you would like that fixed, then pay your bill. And it was incredibly effective for her. She had a lot of people. Now, the other thing we used to do back then with people when I was setting this up initially is we would just call clients and say, hey, you don't have any money in your trust, and I'm not allowed to work on your case unless you have money in trust. So will you please put $500 in trust right now so I can go work on your case? And we would have people put money in their trust just all the time so that the attorney would work on their case. So it was obviously, that's uncomfortable the first time you have that conversation, but it was a very effective way of getting people to pay so you could work on the case. Not surprisingly, I think she did $502,000 her first year, if I remember right. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the exact number, but it was just over 500 just by doing this here. Half the work on the business as the CEO, half the work in the business earning money, right? That's the principle here. I have a whole coaching program on how to do that, right? But the principle rings true. There were some really good questions when I was putting this together of when should I deviate from that? Because this isn't something that you're going to do forever. I don't do the 4x4 rule anymore because I don't work 4 hours a day as an attorney in my business anymore. What I teach people is first you do this. The cool thing about the 4x4 rule is what's going to happen here is you're going to sit down to work for 4 hours a day as an attorney to get paid. And really quickly, you're going to know if you have enough work or not. A lot of people do. A lot of people, when they insist on their current clients paying them and putting money in trust, they have enough work to bill 4 hours a day and they will just double their income in the first month. That quick. Not everybody does though, right? And you may be one of those people. You may not have enough clients to do that. What will happen is you'll be working and 2.5 hours into your 4 hours, you will run out of things to do. And then you can, contact current clients and see if they can pay or whatever. Or maybe they can't. Maybe you get to the point where there's just not work to do that day. That is the sign that you need more clients. And so the second part of the coaching program that we work on is we then go through this lesson isn't about how to acquire clients, right? And we can do another one another day if we need to, but it's really simple. You go, I need to acquire clients, and you spend the next hour and a half, because you have an hour and a half dedicated to the client acquiring activities that we have in the program. And so if you live by the 4x4 rule, you'll either make enough money or you'll be spending a significant amount of time on the client generating activities. And I've yet to have somebody do the client generating activities that we've talked about for more than 6 to 9 weeks and not hit 10,000 a week. Because 10,000 a week is not a crazy number. That's why I was able to do it without any ads. Now, $1 million a month, those types of things, there are definitely levels in which you need to run ads to scale to those levels. But starting out, you just set up the 4x4 rule and use that as the test. If you have enough work that you're like by the end of the 4 hours, you still have more work to do, then you spend the time working on the business as the CEO on systems and things to become more efficient. And if you don't have enough work to work for 4 hours a day, then you spend that time acquiring clients, and you just use that. You use it as your test every single day. Did I have enough work? Okay, then I'm going to spend on the business time systematizing and becoming more efficient. Did I not have enough work? Then I'm going to spend my time acquiring more clients, and you'll just naturally grow because it's giving you the feedback you need to know what to work on next. Obviously, then you use whatever tools you want to improve your business, and obviously I've got those tools as well, right? But the principle rings true. Now, once you've gotten to a certain point where you have enough profit that your time, as we calculate what your time's worth, you go, you know what? It would be worth more to me to become the manager of attorneys than to do the work myself, which you'll know because you've been running this thing. That's when you start hiring people. You have enough work to consistently be billing 4 hours a day. You have enough work that you're consistently busy as a CEO, then we hire your first associate and we scale from there. As you scale with associates, and I have a whole formula here in Attorney Freedom University for some of this more advanced principles, but we then will scale back and scale up your time to make sure we have, sometimes we'll work a little bit more than 4 hours a day for a little bit to get enough work so that when we hire the associate, there's work to give them, and we kind of scale into it up and down there. So you'll get to the point where you're probably spending very little time on the business or in the business as the attorney, and a lot more time on the business as the CEO as you scale, unless that's not what you want to do. I did have one coaching client that said, I hate the business side. I just want to practice. And so we scaled up the business side of her practice so she could do more law. And that was fine too. She has associates that work for her and someone else manages them. So either way is the right way, but you start here, you learn these principles, you learn why they work. And because you understand why they work, you're then able to deviate from it. I wouldn't deviate from it until you've applied the principles and learned how they work. And then the rest of this audit gives you an actual score where you can actually go in and say, how you're doing. And I like to do these things because with this, it becomes no longer a feeling and it's just a measurable result. Did I scale or did I not? So I think the best tests like these are just straight up yes or no questions. You don't rank it from 1 to 5 because that's, again, a feeling. And on any given day, you may feel like you're doing better than other days. And so I've set these up as just yes or no's. So I begin each week with a written plan, yes or no. Just give yourself a yes or no for each of these and then count up your points. So because some people don't have this book, I'm going to just read it out loud. But after I've read it, I'm moving on. I'm not waiting. So I began each week with a written plan. I used a daily calendar that included time blocking. I worked fewer than 10 unplanned or reactive hours this week. I'm going to have to move this just a hair so I can see it. Let me go like this. All right, I completed my number 1 priority task at least 4 days this week. I had at least 3 hours per day of uninterrupted work time. I delegated at least 1 task this week that I should not be doing. I batched processed emails instead of checking it constantly. I ended each day reviewing what I accomplished and planning tomorrow. So just give yourself a yes or a no, a 1 or a 0 on those. That should be out of 8. And again, if you commented email, I'll send you my email SOP so you can know how to batch and process emails. Okay. So give yourself a score of 0 to 8 on that section. Category 2, I slept an average of 7 or more hours per night. There's someone here that I know is going to say no to that because they specifically said their goal was to sleep more. I exercised or moved intentionally at least 3 times this week. I took at least 1 unplugged block of personal time, 2 hours or more. I had fewer than 3 days this month where I felt drained before noon. I engaged in at least 1 energy-adding activity this week. I protected at least 1 evening or weekday with 0 work. That should be out of 6 on that section. For section 3, profitability. I know my real hourly rate. Everybody should be able to say yes to that because we calculated it together. At least 80% of the hours I billed were invoiced. At least 80% of the invoices from the last 90 days are collected. I held weekly financial reviews. Now I'll tell you, I put 80% on those numbers. Personally, I think those should be 95%. Okay. But this is starting out. So I gave you a bone here. So I know my real hourly rate was 1, 80% of hours I billed was 2, 80% of invoices were collected is 3. Number 4 is I held weekly financial reviews. So you understood what your finances were on a weekly basis. 5, I raised my prices or tightened my packages in the last 12 months. 6, I said no to at least once to low value work. 7, my weekly revenue is predictable within plus or minus 20%. And 8, I know exactly how many clients I need per month to hit my goals. These ones are probably going to be harder unless you've have some sort of coaching or training you've done in the past, you probably don't have a lot of these already. These are obviously some of the things we do in our program to make sure people can predict their revenue. I find that one of the biggest stressors that people have is they don't know how much money they're going to make. And so they end up needing a large reserves to feel comfortable because they don't know if they're going to get paid tomorrow. And so by fixing some of these things, my wife has very high anxiety. So we focus a lot on reducing anxiety in our program. And these I've found to be some of the biggest key points on doing so when it comes to profitability. So that profitability score should be out of 8. Number 4, calendar control. This one's out of 6. My weekly calendar was honored at least 80% of the time. My calendar reflects the 4x4 freedom method as a path toward it. Number 3, I had no more than 2 emergency client interruptions this week. Again, I'm curious to see how many people can say yes to that. How many fires did you have to put out this week? Number 4, I batched similar work into time blocks. Number 5, I protected at least one CEO block, 60 to 90 minutes this week. And number 6, I know where every hour went via audit, tracking, or review. Score yourself out of 6 on that one. Category 5, CEO readiness. I promise this is going to be worth it. So I'm impressed how many of you guys are sticking through and actually doing this. This is going to be big. Number 1, CEO readiness is out of 8 points. I completed a weekly review meeting with myself or my team. Number 2, I reviewed key performance indicators weekly. Number 3, I documented at least one process this month. Number 4, I clearly assigned responsibility for tasks. Number 5, I ran or attended a weekly check-in meeting with a consistent agenda. Number 6, I identified at least one issue and solved it permanently. Number 7, I had a written 30 to 90 day plan and reviewed it weekly. And number 8, I invested time or money into improving skills, leadership, or systems. That's out of 8. And then you add those numbers together. So your total score should be out of 36. If you are daring enough, I would love for you to put in the chat, what is your score? Anybody who tells me their score between 0 and 36 will again be put into a drawing for one of those books. So if you are daring enough to share your number, you are daring enough to win a book. Okay. Now, of that, if you're between 0 and 12, you are truly in survival mode. And I want you to pay attention to that. We're going to talk a little bit later about the different, it's called the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And depending on where you're at on that hierarchy of needs, depends on what your brain is or is not capable of comprehending. And so if you are in survival mode, the ability to comprehend and spend time on bigger picture things is almost non-existent. So if you're there, what we are going to focus on is going to be very different than if you're in the stabilization mode. A stabilization mode is 13 to 24. A scaling mode, where you're actually able to build your business, that is 25 to 30. Cassie, thanks for being the first person to dare sharing their number. I'm impressed. And mastery mode is 31 to 36. And I love how many people are admitting their numbers. It's okay to be in survival mode. To be honest, you're here because you're in survival mode, right? You feel the need to be here, right? Everybody has been in survival mode at some point. So it's not something to be down on. It's something to understand and acknowledge so that we can fix, right? Once we know that, then we can fix it. How to fix it is very simple. We just have to know where you are, and then we have to do the things that fix it. So I give you guys props for those who are openly admitting to where they're at. Even Cassie is in stabilization mode. So I appreciate everybody who's sharing their numbers. And that's, once you know these numbers, the nice thing is now you know how to score them, right? You have those categories. And so you can just start picking things that are easy to fix. Some of these things are all worth 1 point, right? So you could probably find 5 or 6 things that you could fix very quickly. And that would bump you into another category just by fixing some of the simple things. Now, some of the things are going to take more effort than others, but spend a little bit of time seeing if there's maybe 2 or 3 of those things that you could fix right now. Like the email, right? I have an SOP I'm sending to a bunch of you already on how to manage your email. That would be an easy one for a lot of people to fix. So that's the most important part. And this is what I do is personally, I run through this to see where I'm scoring. And it's not always a straight line upwards. Sometimes things happen and I lose points and I need to fix it. But by auditing yourself on a consistent basis, I suggest everybody who's starting out to set 12-week goals, so quarterly goals, and to audit themselves once a quarter. Now I audit myself about once every other month or so now. I audit myself a little bit more frequently now because I'm trying to change more nuanced things. But starting out, I would set quarterly goals and review this on a quarterly basis. That's why I created the VIP upgrade, is you can just fill this out on a quarterly basis, see how you're improving, pick a couple of things to work on and improve them from there. And that's really it. Okay. It's not about escaping the law. It's about doing the law on your terms. You will find that as you increase your score here, as you pay attention to your time and energy, you're going to feel a whole lot better about your practice. So hopefully you found this audit helpful. This is just a bite-sized version of what we do in the program. It's hard to take, a full module and 6 weeks of training and do it in a 30-minute training online, but hopefully you can kind of see the value of auditing. If you have thoughts or questions on audits or this audit specifically, I'd love to hear them, because the rest of this is just setting goals based off of the numbers that you had. Okay. So I'm not going to go through the rest of this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to go through them with you. But the rest of this thing is just setting goals based off of those numbers. For today's training, I wanted you to know the numbers. All right. So 4x4 rule, we already talked about, right? Working on the business versus working in the business. And this is really how you protect that time, right? So by doing this, the principle I wanted to make sure you understood by teaching this is kind of going back to that full plate, right? Is if you have a full plate with all your time on it, if we do the 4x4 rule, it's effectively putting dividers on that plate so that things from one category don't spill over into the others, right? If anybody has kids, I'm sure you've had those plates where the kids can't have their food touch, and so you have the little dividers, and if the food touches, it's the end of the world, right? And so effectively we're doing that with your calendar. We're saying 4 hours a day you're going to be CEO, 4 hours a day you're going to be the attorney. That also leaves about half of your day for other things, right? And so I spend another 4 hours a day on personal self-development and health, fitness, those types of things. I spend another 4 hours a day on energy adding activities, spending time with my family and those types of things. That's how I break up my 16 hours roughly. So that's the general breakdown, right? But it allows you to kind of have buffers so that one category doesn't spill over into the other categories, especially money and income spilling over into family. I'm guessing, again, if you want to admit it in the chat, that'd be awesome, that the first thing that falls by the wayside when you get busy is either physical fitness, health, or family. It seems like the people we love the most get the short end of the stick the most because they're the ones who will understand, right? So you don't have to admit that in the chat if you don't want to, but I want you to reflect on that a little bit. So that's why I put those scales there with the clocks on it, was AI generated clocks with 3 hands on one and 2 on the other. It kind of made me laugh, but I wanted you to see that balance. Now, you'll hear people like Alex Hormozi and stuff talk about there's no such thing as balance. And I think that's true, but I do think that you should go all in on the activities you're doing during those times and then turn that sucker off and go all in on being with your family and stuff as well. You can have physical fitness and family and make money if you follow a rule like this. So the biggest thing the 4x4 rule does is set up those dividers so the time doesn't bleed over. And there's a rule, it's called Parkinson's Law, that says things will take as long as we let them take. So by setting up dividers, we don't allow our activities to overtake the other activities, which forces us to find more efficient ways of doing it. Parkinson's Law has been one of my favorite things to apply and test in my own business. We'll spend some time working on that together in the future if you'd like. But the first thing is setting up the rule and allowing that structure to create the discipline that you need, because, or I should say the freedom that you need, because discipline won't do it. If you only get one thing for the third time today from this meeting, it's that there's no amount of discipline that's going to let you achieve your goals. Your brain's just not capable of working that way. You have to have habits to complete goals. And that comes from emptying your plate and filling it in with the right things. If you try to just discipline your way and mental fortitude your way through things, sooner or later it will break. Because you're literally just trying to hold that piece of food on the top of the plate, and it stays there for as long as you pay attention. But guess what? Your attention is at some point or another going to be pulled to something else. Your brain can actually only think of 7 things at a time. And so, and sleeping is the best way to clear those blocks out. And so if you're trying not to smoke or trying to lose weight or trying whatever, right? And you'll have a lot of ability to do that in the beginning of the day, but by the end of the day, you filled all those boxes. And at some point, your brain's going to have to empty one of those boxes to fill it with something else, like your screaming child. And what's going to happen is the diet, the exercise, the not smoking, whatever it is, that box was one of the oldest boxes, and it gets emptied so that you can deal with the immediate emergency in front of you of a screaming child or a client fire. And that's when you lapse. It's not because you suck. It's because you're human. And the only way to fix that is to build these structures into place so that in spite of being human, you can succeed. I could go all day about the psychology behind that. So I'm trying to wrap it into like one sentence, but happy to answer questions on that. If you're having questions here, this is a good point to, we've probably talked about some things, and some of these things resonate with you and you're like, yeah, I can, or I should do that. Other things you're like, are you sure? Feel free to ask those questions. So Alina is monitoring this chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And at the end, I'm going to go through a question and answer where I'm going to answer questions you have about audits and reclaiming time. And I truly want you to feel like at the end of this call, you are capable and have either reclaimed 10 hours or are capable of reclaiming 10 hours by executing a specific action plan. So if there's any hurdles that you're running into already, start throwing those into the chat now. I'll ask for specifics later as well. So start thinking of it, and we're going to go through those together. So if there's anything that's not resonating with you, now's your chance to start asking, and I'll address those at the end. So there's some additional benefits I wanted to talk about when you start getting your time back. So if you've started doing that time and energy audit and you've started recognizing things that need to be removed, I want to talk about what happens when you start removing those things. So Dan Mortel does talk about this. He talks about audit, transfer, fill. So you audit your time, you transfer the things that are the lowest value tasks, highest time consuming tasks, and then you need to fill it with better things. This is not what I'm talking about with the fill. We will fill as part of your planning stage, but I want to talk about what happens once you've filled that time in, because there's some really big benefits that are kind of sleeper benefits that people forget about. And the first is that when you do this the right way, you get rid of your low value pain in the butt clients. And I want you to do a little analysis here for a second. If I ask you, who's your biggest pain in the butt client? Don't put it in the chat. It's attorney-client privilege. But who is your biggest pain in the butt client? Guarantee all of you had someone come to your mind. If you didn't have someone to your mind, then write none in the chat. I have never done one of these presentations where someone didn't have at least one pain in the butt client. So no one's saying none. So I think we're safe. I think I have my perfect track record is going to continue on that. That's, again, it's human nature, especially with the billing things that we talked about earlier. That's going to happen. So I want to follow up that question though and ask, is your pain in the butt client paying you? Now, generally speaking, about 80% of the time, people are going to say no here. There are occasions in which there are people who pay and demand more than they should. And so they are a pain in the butt and still pay. Now, it is also very likely, like Pamela's mentioning, that you may have more than one pain in the butt client, right? I had one person, he and I are friends on Facebook. He hasn't commented here today, so I don't know if he's here or not. I'm not going to say his name, but I'm curious if he's here. But almost every day, he gets online and complains about how crappy his clients are. And that's an issue, right? If you're doing this right, most of your clients are going to appreciate you. If they understand the value that they're receiving, they understand the price that they're paying, and that it's less than the value they're receiving, most clients will be happy. And so if you have a lot of pain in the butt clients, it's because of the value equation that we were talking about earlier. But no matter how good you're at it, there's still going to be some people that are just impossible. So in our office, we have to fire somebody about once a quarter. So not even every month, maybe 2 people a quarter, definitely not every month. We have a lot of clients come in, right? I mean, we're lots per month. And only about 1 needs to be fired because the value equation is understood. And so for the most part, when you get this right, low value clients go away. The people who you're working with pay and they appreciate your work. And I can't emphasize that enough, because it, like, when you do something for someone and they are just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. That was so awesome. Thank you for getting my kid back from Egypt. I couldn't have done this without you. When you go home that day, is your energy high or is your energy low? And I bet when you're looking and saying, man, my energy sucks today, like all I can do is go home and watch TV because I'm just pooped. If you look back at your day, probably because you were dealing with client fires all day and clients were complaining that things were taking too long. So that's one of the biggest benefits there. Obviously, unpaid work goes away because you're getting paid. The constant interruptions also go away. By understanding what people want, we're able to preempt a lot of their questions. Because we preempt a lot of their questions go away. And without those interruptions, you'll see a huge decrease in your mental clutter. Which for my wife, she wanted me to put that at the top because that's the biggest benefit to her, right? And that's the biggest benefit she notices when I get home too, is when my brain is still running with all of the issues from the day, that sucks for my home life. And so we want to clear that up, which does happen. So the right work survives and the wrong work fades away. So why I started using the word focus here at the end, but it's really just this system that we're talking about, right? At the beginning, we said we need a value-based operating system. So I just didn't want to write value-based operating system. That's like the whole title in and of itself. So I started saying focus because that's a little bit shorter. But why does this operating system, why does focus create money automatically without adding hours or pressure, right? That's right behind the camera. So the biggest thing is fewer cases equal better clients. Most clients are frustrated because they can't get a hold of you, right? You took too long, whatever. If you have less clients, you can serve them better and they will therefore be happier in and of itself, right? Higher effective hourly rate, less rework and waste. Can't tell you how many times that if you look back on how many mistakes were made, it's almost always because someone was rushing or they were against a deadline or something of that nature. So by removing those and having more time to get the work done, the rework goes away. Clearer decisions equals less mental waste, and efficiency equals time equals effective. And that's what the attorneys that work for me have talked about. I've got one, he's worked at a lot of different law firms over the years, had a lot of different experiences. And he said that was one of the biggest benefits of coming here, is that because we're so efficient, he doesn't spend his time doing things like putting stamps on envelopes and taking stuff to the post office and, assembling documents. So when he is working on a case, what he's doing is actual things that require attorneys, right? Legal analysis, legal, persuasion, negotiation, the things that only an attorney can do. So before, he would have had 4 hours to work on a motion. And the first hour he would have spent compiling the facts and gathering the evidence and getting everything in front of him so he could draft the motion. Then he'd spend 2 hours drafting the motion, and then he would spend an hour proofreading it and making sure he didn't make any mistakes. Well, now at our firm, he has 4 hours to work on a motion. When he picks it up, everything's already compiled for him. Summary of facts is already there. All of the evidence is organized in such a way he knows exactly where to find it from the very beginning. So he gets to spend the entire 4 hours on legal analysis. Now, if you have 2 hours to spend on legal analysis or 4 hours, which one's going to be better? Obviously 4, right? So he ends up having significantly better work. And then when he's done, he sends it back to my team where we have professional proofreaders who, guess what? They're better at proofreading than attorneys are, and they proofread it. So the error rate goes way down because now he's not fatigued. We have someone who's good at it doing it. And at the end work product ends up being better because we started with efficiency, which gave him more time to do the valuable things, which made him more effective. So focus compounds faster than effort. The worst thing he could have done is say, okay, I need 4 hours to work on this case. So instead of taking 4 hours, he takes 6. And now he's tired because he worked 10 hours instead of 8. And guess what? When you're tired, you do worse work. And so then instead of it actually taking 6 hours, it takes 7. And now you're at 11 hours instead of 10. And it just compounds on itself the other way. Which leads us into this last secret. If you've noticed thus far, everything we've talked about really has been leading up to this point of you probably don't hate the law. You just hate how you're practicing it. And I played for a long time with how I wanted to word this phrase because I'm guessing if you're here, you're feeling a little bit of burnout. Is anybody willing to admit that they're feeling a little burnout? You can just put burnout in the chat if you do or have been feeling burnout at all in the last 6 to 12 months. Just write burnout in the chat, because I'm guessing if you're here, you have felt some burnout, and it's natural to wonder, should I be a lawyer? And the stats on this are actually staggering. I saw a stat one time and I couldn't find it last night, so I don't know if it's exactly true or not, but that 50% of people who graduate from law school, they're in a career that doesn't require a Juris Doctorate. So they went to law school, they paid they're still probably paying on their student loans. And within 5 years of graduating, they are in a career that didn't require them to be an attorney. And the number even keeps going up from there. So I couldn't find that statistic last night, so I'm not sure if it's exactly true or not, but the principle rings true that attorneys are getting burned out really quick. Big law firms have an 80% churn rate, that 80% of the people they hire will churn within 5 years, because the burnout there is even worse. The expectations that we've talked about today are way worse in those big law situations than even solos. But burnout is a cause from the design problem, not a character flaw. Okay. I was also incredibly burned out. Now, the crazy thing is if you go through this story with me, and I think there's a slide on this later, but I'm going to tell the story now and we'll just skip that slide when we get there. So I started out, I was making 74 grand a year. I kept 17 of it. So I was barely making above minimum wage. I then said, hey, I got to learn this business thing, right? Well, a lot of the business people I took advice from was work harder. So I did. I worked super hard. I made myself available. My clients had my cell phone number. I thought that was super important. They could get a hold of me at any time. That was a selling point I had. And we got to the point that I was making some pretty good money. It was just me and one paralegal, and my office rent was $400 a month. So I had like no expenses. So even though I was only bringing in like 220 grand a year in gross revenue, I was keeping a large percentage of it. My paralegal at the time was $12 an hour. She was stoked to get $12 an hour, which is so funny because the times have changed that you can't find people nearly as good as her for half or twice as much as that now. But so we were doing about 220, 250 a year. And I was keeping a good chunk of it. So I was feeling pretty good about myself, and super burned out. So the pinnacle point here that flipped the switch for me was I was at my nephew's birthday party. So my in-laws actually own a reception center. So we were at a castle reception center, way overkill for a birthday party. But I'm there and my client calls me because her ex isn't bringing the kid over. And I finally just said, whatever. And I jumped on the call and I spent 45 minutes working with her and opposing counsel to get her parent time set up. And my wife was ticked. I'd been gone the whole party, right? So she's now wrangling all of our children by herself, and she's worn out. It's Friday night, she's had a whole week of hassle too. And so she and I get in a little argument about me never being present. And the truth is I wasn't. I was constantly texting and emailing and helping clients at all hours of the day. I was still billing by the hour back then. So I could justify it. Someone would email me during dinner and I'd hop on and respond back and make $25. Then I could be like, hey babe, look, like I just made $25 at dinner tonight, like I just paid for dinner, and was super burned out. So that's when I went from, I needed money. So I worked really hard on making money. I got better at making money, but then I was working too many hours and got burned out. And then I had to fix it. And then I got really good at working less and earning more, right? I got to the point where I was making $500,000 a year in gross revenue. It was still just me and one paralegal at that time. Working 10 to 20 hours a week. Thought I'd made it, right? Now I was working less and playing video games, was still bummed. And I got to the point where I had to learn that living my passion was the ultimate goal here, right? So I want to see a similar journey for you of, you didn't lose your passion. You're not overloaded. It's just because you're living in a reactive instead of intentional environment. And this practice of law that they've set up is designed to burn you out. So don't beat yourself up for it. It's not you. It's just a system that we need to fix. Let's dive into a little bit how we fix that, right? So why first does burnout happen? It's not the work, it's the load. You have too many cases, too many decisions, too much stress, too many deadlines, no margin to think. There's mental load, right? Constant context switching. You're constantly going back from task to task. It's really hard for your brain to switch from a task to task. No end to the workday. It goes home with you, and the mental stress goes home with you, even if you're not working. And you're doing all of that for not enough pay. I'm guessing a lot of you are feeling that, right? So burnout is really just a cumulative, and it accumulates over time. It's not sudden. So what changes when you have the right system? This is what most attorneys are really missing. They need fewer cases. They need to be making fewer decisions. They need less stress, fewer deadlines, a margin to think, focused, uninterrupted work. That's why I said, try not to be distracted during this presentation, right? That focus is important. A clear end to the workday, clear divider between your tasks in the day, and pay that matches the responsibility. So your capacity is what's going to restore the clarity, and it's your clarity that's going to restore your control. That's where you're going to feel the fulfillment in your job again. Again, nothing's wrong with you. My goal with this last secret was that you had to understand that nothing is wrong with you. This isn't something that you created. The system has failed you, and it's just time to fix the system. You can do this though, okay? I don't care who you are, you can do this. So really there's two paths to go from here. Both lead you somewhere, but only one leads you to freedom. So the first path is you keep doing what you're doing. You keep trying to manage your overload, and you hope that things will slow down after this next phase. As I was putting this together and obviously brainstorming with ChatGPT, when this came up, it really made me laugh because my wife and I had been talking about how hard it is when your kid is 4. I don't know why, but at least for our kids, when they're 4, they are so loud. And loudness is one of the hardest things for me. And so I really struggle with them being 4. And I was like, I can't wait for my 4-year-old to be 5 or 6 and grow out of this. Because it's about that 2 to 3 start until 4 to 5. By the time they get 5, they figure out how to control their voice. And that's a big trigger for me. Right. So I literally said that to my wife. And then like 2 hours later, I'm working on this and I had to go out and show her. I was like, man, it's not about just enduring to the next phase. The next phase it doesn't just get better. Right. And you've probably been doing that for a while. We're like, well, it'll be better when this trial is over. It'll be better when the holidays are over. It'll be better when I'm less busy. It'll be better, but then you don't make money and it'll be better during the busy season, right? There's always another phase and it never just gets better on its own. Second path is to redesign your practice. You can create a system that will fix this for you. You just have to remove the low value work intentionally and build a firm that gives you time back. So the other thing is not choosing is choosing. And if anybody can tell me where this picture comes from, why I picked this picture, I will be impressed. Most of you should know if you're a long-term movie fan. But it's one of my favorite examples of having 2 options and picking one. Because that's what you need to do today. That's my goal with this is so that you pick and you commit to no longer living in the life that you're currently doing. So, are you interested in path 1 or path 2? And if you're not picking path 2, you're picking path 1. Yes, Kim got it. It is the Matrix. So, thank you for not making me feel too old on this. So, okay, hopefully you're picking path 2. If you're picking path 2, let's talk about how to do that. If you're okay with it, I want to take like 10 minutes to talk about this with you. To show you a system that I've developed on how to reclaim this time, not just once, but over and over in your practice so that you can create the system that you need. Because you don't need more information. The truth is, especially with ChatGPT nowadays, information is abundant. It's not information that you need. You need a system that you can implement to not only reclaim some time back today, right? If you take what you learned today, you can easily maximize your email, get off of social media, batch a couple of things, bundle your work, and you've already got 10 hours back. Guarantee that if you just apply the few things we talked about in that audit, you've got 10 hours back once. But what is it going to take to reclaim that over and over again? What does it take to, remove the admin tasks so that you can hire an admin, and then you become efficient enough that you hire a paralegal, and then you become efficient enough that you're hiring an attorney. The next thing you know, you've got a team of people working for you efficiently and effectively, and you're doing whatever you want from wherever you want. And you can always decide where on that journey you stop, whatever's best for you and your lifestyle. But what does it take to do it over and over again? So with your permission, if you'll give me like 10 minutes, I'd love to go through that. I need permission. There we go. Someone says yes, so I can move on. So I have taken the time to put together, I call it Attorney Freedom University. It's really an operating system, though, more than an education system. It started off as just a course and has turned into what's now a full-blown operating system. It's for law firm owners who want time freedom. So it's built specifically for law firm owners. Like, this isn't something that, the principles will ring true in any business, but it's designed for law firm owners. And it helps you redesign your practice so that you can reclaim that time and go up the scale of that Maslow hierarchy of needs. So it's not a course. It's not really mastermind. I used to do masterminds. I loved the mastermind format. But the problem was we did a lot of talking. It was exciting. It was fun. but it was hard to like implement in your life and actually see the results. So the people who took the principles we learned from the mastermind saw massive results, but it wasn't that like actual implementable system that you consistently do over time. And so we've kind of converted it into that operating system that we're looking for. It's really step-by-step operating system. Cassie said woohoo, which is awesome that Cassie's here because she was one of the first people to do this system. So I'm going to call on her later to say whether or not it worked for her or not. So it's all focused on, obviously, again, the first thing, setting up that foundation of time, which builds into the money element. When you have enough time and money, that's what gives you the power to get energy. And I'm going to talk about why that works in a second, but it's built on that foundation of time, then money, then energy. And again, with that in mind, you reclaim the 10 hours, you remove those low value work permanently, you redesign your calendar. So you actually use your calendar to build out those blocks even more so that you have enough time set up to ensure that you're going to do all of the things you needed in a day to hit those goals. Freedom comes from the structure. It doesn't come from the hustle, right? And it's built here. And this is the slide I wanted to get to. And so I was pushing through those ones to get here as quick as I could. So this is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. And I really like it because it helped me understand why I would learn things and try to implement them. And I just couldn't. And then I would dive into things and some things would work really well. Some things wouldn't. And I just never, I knew that fulfilling my purpose, spending time with my family, those were my goals, but I never seemed to be able to do it. And it wasn't until I saw this that it clicked for me. So at the bottom of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and it's normally a triangle, right? But if I did the whole triangle, then I have room to write stuff on the side. So I just use the line here. So if you have unmet physiological needs, your brain is not capable of comprehending anything above that. So for instance, if you are swimming and you're at the bottom of a pool and you run out of air and you're, kicking off the ground, trying to get back to the surface before you run out of air, can you think about Trump's immigration policy? I know that's a polarizing one, so I wanted to use it as an example, right? No, you cannot. If you can't breathe, you can't think about what's right or wrong. Your brain is not capable of doing it. The only thing your brain can think about is get me air. So breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. I can't remember who wrote sleep. I wonder if she's still here. I've called on her this whole time, so I'm literally scrolling up to the top to see if she's still here. Bonnie, I hope you're still here because you said sleep. If you have unmet needs there, then you can't think about the other things. So if you're like, why can't I get into shape? It's probably because you have an unmet physiological need. Now, the trick here is our brains link cash flow with physiological needs. And it's not always rational here, okay? So you can have enough money for food, but if your brain doesn't think you can afford it, you're still going to be stuck in the physiological need stage, even though you do technically have enough money to pay for it. So my wife and I, we talk about this all the time. We need $60,000 in our savings account for her to feel comfortable. Is that rational? No, not even close. But for her, when we dip below, I should say that's the business reserve account. Our personal account, I think we have 10,000 in there, and then the business reserve is 60. But for her, when we drop below that number, she will literally nitpick $5 charges. And based on our income, we should never have to think about $5 charges ever again. But she doesn't feel like we are safe if we are below that number. So is it logical or not? It doesn't matter. That's the number that she needs for there. And so we do that and we put that money in reserves so that we can check these boxes off, which allows us to go to the next stage. So you're going to notice in Attorney Freedom University, we start off with marketing and advertising and cash flow, the foundations of freedom, because I need to meet those needs so that you're capable of looking at the other ones. And then we just ascend up the ladder, right? You do safety and security. Once those are met, we do love and belonging. Once those are met, we can go to self-esteem, confidence, achievement, goals, achieving goals, which allows you to get up to self-actualization, which is where you're fulfilling your purpose in life and those types of things. Just like me, I had to go from, I don't have enough money. Should I get my own job? Okay, now I'm making enough money, but I'm working too hard. My family, if you look at safety and security, my family and health were the issues, right? So I needed to fix those. Once that happened, I was able to get truly into the love and belonging. At that stage in my life, I went on vacation every single month. Every other month, we would do like a short 3 or 4 day vacation. And the other months, we would do a week or longer vacation. We did 1 2-week vacation, just my wife and I that year, because I was so focused on improving my love and belonging. Once that was met, that's when I was able to get the self-esteem and confidence to actually get on camera and talk to people. And once that was met, that's where I was able to fulfill my purpose. I had to go through all of those stages too. Attorney Freedom University is designed to give you the information to get past that stage. Once you've got it, then you get the information to the other stages. We actually don't release the modules all at once. You have to earn them through the program by doing what's in them, but it's that way on purpose because you need it line upon line in order to achieve your goals over time and actually be consistent. If you try to do the purpose-driven stuff first and you haven't met your physiological needs yet, you won't be able to do it. And it'll feel like it's broken, but it's not because it's broken. It's not because you're broken. It's because the system's broken. And so we fixed that to show you. So this is the updated version there, and you can see all the stuff. I don't need to go module by module on what's there, but it's just designed to help you ascend that ladder so you can actually achieve your goals, starting with time, then money, and then energy. Everything in here, though, is focused on that mind plus action equals results. So we're going to teach you things, obviously, right? But then we work on making sure you actually do it. So the system actually has a 100% success rate for people who do it. So Cassie is here and can attest whether it worked for her or not. I think she's here, so I think she'll say it. But and I have a bunch of people who are going to be on the Q&A later this afternoon for those who want to join us of current and past coaching clients that are willing to answer that question for you as well. But what I had to say is like, okay, is there a system that works? And the answer is yes. And then my question then as a coach is how do I help people actually do it? There's nothing that irks me more than when I give someone something and they don't do it. And then they say it doesn't work. And so at first I was like, okay, I know this works. How do I make sure people do it? And the biggest question was, I don't know what to do, or will it be hard? And so we actually created a step-by-step checklist that you can just do the checklist. I created that checklist the first time with Cassie and her group. So I'm going to show you the exact checklist I gave them initially. We've improved it since then, but I've retained that initial version so that if anybody wants to see the initial that everybody had so much success with, they can see it and use it. The next question was, I don't have time to do the work, which is why we focus on reclaiming your time first. Only after we've taken things off your plate and you can see the gap, that's when we put things back in it. And we're going to put those more valuable tasks in there so that you achieve more and more goals. That's why we have a calendar-driven execution system, right? What if you run into a snag, right? Just because there's information and tools and resources out there, as I've said already, information is abundant. You don't need more information. You need a system that works. And so we actually have a weekly roundtable Q&A where we get together as a group. Everybody in the program, whether you're at $10,000 a month or $1 million a month, they're invited to this Q&A and we bounce ideas off of each other. This is what allows us to, there's a couple principles that work here by doing it this way. One, if you have a question, you can actually ask the community and get an answer to your question at any time, or you can come to the Q&A, which we need deadlines, right? So that gives us a deadline to actually go ask our questions. But what's the cool part here is somebody can ask a question and I will happily answer it, but I'm going to pause and let the audience answer first. And then we'll have a discussion if we disagree. But I do that because, like I said at the beginning, if you listen or hear something, you retain about 5 to 10%. If you read it, you retain about 5 to 10%. If you listen and hear it, you retain about 30%. If you do it, you retain about 50 to 70%. And if you teach somebody else, you retain about 90% of what you've taught. And so by setting up a Q&A roundtable like this, I'm allowing you the opportunity to teach other people, which is how we finally solidify this to the point where you never forget it again. So if you're at the beginning and you need help, you can ask help. Even if you're at the end and need help, you're still going to be able to ask help. But as you're along that journey, you can also teach other people and solidify the principles you've learned to where you don't forget it again. And then the other thing is, hey, I'm busy. Am I actually going to do this? Which is why we have an accountability system. My wife actually does the accountability where she follows up with you every single week. And as her husband, I can attest that she is great at nagging you to get things done. And she hates, she gets mad at me every time I say that, but there's a reason that I was as successful as I was. And it's because she has helped me stay on task. And she's a big part of what we do there. So that's all included in this system. So the last question is for whom? And for whom is it not, right? So you own or are building a law firm. You know, again, as at the beginning, I said, if you're making really good money and you just feel burned out, you will find success in this program faster than anybody. But even if you're not, if you're just working hard and not making enough money, this program is going to be super helpful. If you're willing to learn, and even if you're just starting out, this will work. Jeannie is one of our newer, you know, she has a newer law firm, and I believe she's going to be on the Q&A this afternoon to talk about if you're a new firm. How to use this program to succeed even when you're first starting out. And just at the end of the day, if you want freedom without sacrificing your quality of life or your income, then this would be for you. Flip side, again, if you're looking for a shortcut or you know, quick wins, this isn't going to be there. Funny enough, we do have a quick wins category that's going to make you some money quickly, but it's just a tactic to collect some money. I wanted you to earn some money back real quick, just so you could justify the cost of the program. Like you can get a huge ROI at the beginning, but that's not a sustainable thing. There's just gonna be a quick win to get some money back. But at the end of the day, you're gonna have to put in the work if you want to get long-term results. Again, if you're not willing to do the work, that's why I said, if you want motivation without change, don't join. Because we're going to remove things from your calendar so you have the time to do it. But then at the end of the day, you got to do the work. The system works if you do. And that's why I've said a couple of times now that this program has a 100% success rate. I've yet to have somebody complete the checklist and not hit their goal. And we'll talk about the different versions in there specifically. The only time people have not, sometimes their goals change. And so we end up not completing the checklist because they don't want the goal that checklist produces. That's okay. I actually consider that a win. One of my favorite coaching clients, it was back when we were doing just $10,000 a week programs. So the goal was to get to someone to 10,000 a week. And about halfway through the program, it just wasn't working. And I ended up jumping on some one-on-one calls, even though she was in the group program, because I just wanted to see her succeed. And after 2 one-on-one calls, she jumped in there and said on the call, she's like, hey, I know why I'm not succeeding. She's like, I don't want to make 10,000 a week. She was homeschooling her 5 kids, now 6 at the time. And she broke down her calendar using the 4x4 rule. We customized it to her, but she broke down her calendar and said, look, if I work here and I do these things, I can homeschool my kids. I can be completely present and I can make $250,000 a year because I'm working from home as an estate planning attorney. Her total out-of-pocket expenses were less than $50,000 for the year. So she's like $250,000 gross, $50,000 expenses. That gives me a taxable income of $200,000. That's more than enough. That's more than we need for what we're doing. So she was the first person that didn't hit $10,000 a week. And she's my favorite coaching client still to this day, because I think of how cool it is that she created the lifestyle she wanted, right? So that's why I say it is, I know the system works. The question just is if you end up wanting it or not and how you want it. So, so as I drop the price here, I want to ask you just a couple of questions. And Pam's got a question on how things work, and we'll go through that too. But what are the numbers that you have calculated so far? So based on those, those revenue, I put that double your revenue thing in here, right? Just because I wanted to remind me to ask you like that. If you're at 2 hours a day right now and you were to get to 4, how much money would you be making? If you were claimed 10 hours a week, what would that be worth to you? I just used that. The average attorney bills $495 an hour in Utah, in the country. That's way higher than we bill here in Utah. So depending on where you're at, that number may be really high or really low, but that's the average. And so what would those things be worth? And I ran some of those numbers, especially as you're building out a team. It's fun to run those numbers and see what they're worth to you there as well. Because if you are able to increase your team's hours to 6 or 7 hours a day, because they're not doing the business stuff, right? So they can bill more hours than you ever can. What's that worth? What would an increased earnings per case be worth to you? If you were able to cut your caseload by 20% without losing any money, how much would that be worth? And then some of these non-tangible things, never missing a kid's sporting event. There's pros and cons to that. My kid really sucks at basketball and I'm still at every event and it's brutal to watch, but supporting him as a pro, watching the game as a con, as somebody who loves basketball, it hurts. But taking your family on a vacation this year, when's the last time you went on a vacation? What would that mean to you if you're able to take them on a vacation? What if you're able to take a 2-week vacation? If you've been doing vacations, what would a 2-week vacation or a 4-week vacation look like? Other things that people were talking about as I was putting this together, that they said like, man, I'm so glad I did this program because it helped, I had time to learn a language. I was like, oh, that's sweet. That never came to my mind as something to do, but if that's something you're interested in, what would that be worth? Or donating to charity. We donate quite a bit of money to a local abuse shelter every year. That's a big one for me. And Adrian, I know that we have made it when she eats at a restaurant and doesn't look at the price. That's the biggest thing. Like, that's how I know she feels comfortable with how much we've made. So what would those things be worth? Is that worth, a billable hour per month? We ran through those numbers and it was would you trade 1 hour? This was a fun thing I used to do. It was actually when I was a missionary, we were teaching tithing, and I'd give someone 10 pieces of candy and then ask them for one back and ask if they would give it to me. Because obviously they would every single time. And then we'd use it to teach tithing, right? And the same thing is true here, right? Like, would you trade 1 hour to get 10 back or 5 back or 40 back? How many hours would you need to get back in order to trade one? What else other than money is not doing this costing you? And then really the only downside then is you're doing the work at your own pace. So how much does this cost? The answer is $4.95. Where is it? Oh, it is there. Ha! Those 2 slides got mixed up. So I was running the numbers. Okay. So Attorney Freedom University is $4.95 a month. There's no mandatory upfront fee or anything like that. It's simply that. And it is, when we talk about deliverables, we've got all of the materials in module format, as well as group coaching, weekly accountability. And then you have access to me through the system as well. So in addition to being I'm on all of the calls and everything, I can see your progress in the modules. So my wife follows up with you every single week on the specific things you said you're going to work on. But 2 or 3 times a month, I jump in and look at your progress and reach out to you as well. So it is do at your own pace. This system is specifically designed to do at your own pace, but it has all of the tools and resources. It's not just training, right? Like if I tell you to do something, then I give you a tool, like the audit, right, on how to do it. So we walk you step by step and we give you a checklist on how to do that. And the really question is that worth $4.95 a month for you? Like I said, the only downside to it was because it's do at your own pace. Sometimes it takes longer than others. And so for this event, I revived our old 12-week program. So again, this is the program that Cassie specifically did. It says woohoo in the chat. So hopefully that's a good thing. But I revived that 12-week program that had a step-by-step, do this week. Here's your checklist to do this week. And like I said, that program, we ran it for about 1.5 years. It had 100% success rate of getting people to $10,000 a week, working 40 hours a week or less. And some people, like Cassie, will work more than 40 hours because they're hardworking, but it's not required to complete the program. So that was here. I was like, okay, if someone wants Attorney Freedom University for $4.95, great, let's just do it. But if you want speed, like you're like, okay, after sitting through this presentation, I'm like, I need to do this and I need to do it today. Like I need to have 10K a week in 12 weeks or less. Like speed is what I need. And you wanted some additional support. We wanted to revive that program. So it's called Fast Track to Freedom, hands-on implementation. Effectively, what we've done is I've taken the core principles out of Attorney Freedom University. So it's the exact same operating system, but kind of took the 80-20 rule. I was like, okay, what 20% of these things produce 80% of the results? And we put it into a 12-week step-by-step program. And so some of the advanced principles from the later modules that are going to take some time to unlock, we have those principles inside the 12-week program. So you kind of get the same system, just much faster results. Still get the weekly accountability. You get direct coaching with me as well, and clear execution milestones. So because we have that detailed checklist, you just every single week you can see what you needed to do or not do. And it gives you all the tools to speed that up. So as I've said a couple of times, this is the program that had that 100% success rate. So if you're looking for like value, speed, and clarity, you want to get this done right away, and you're ready to implement now. I like to say, if you're a good attorney, you just need business help, and your goal is 10K a week, right? So if you're well above 10K a week, then this program, this Fast Track to Freedom is not for you. Attorney Freedom University would be, but the Fast Track to Freedom would not be what you're looking for. Then you want to consider this. And obviously, if you're rather like, like Jeannie was talking about how she wants to work like 20 hours a week. So she just wants to kind of do things at her own pace. If that's the case, that's great. Join Attorney Freedom University. Just you don't need the Fast Track program. You can do it at your own pace, right? So if you're looking for accelerated results and you're willing to pay a little bit more for the extra support to make that happen, so that this really sticks and it sticks quickly, then this would be what you're looking for. Yeah, it just calendar trouble. We talked about that. So what's the investment for this? So when I first made this program, it was the $10,000 a week program. And we said, okay, if someone can make $10,000 a week for the rest of their life, what would that be worth? And we said, obviously 10,000, right? If you make 10,000 a week, then pay me a one-time fee of 10,000. It's not going to be that fee. Just spoiler alert, we got it less for today, but that's what it was. It was 10,000 up front. I think the very first group we did a discount, so it was like 5 or 6 that first time. But we sold it for about a year and a half at $10,000, and it had a 100% success rate. And in fact, I had a guarantee back then that said, okay, if you don't hit $10,000 a week by the end of the program and you've done everything on the checklist, I'll give you your money back. Never did someone get their money back on that guarantee, because every single person who did the checklist got their money back. So it was a great guarantee because people were motivated to do the checklist so they could get their money back. And then everybody made the money, and they won because they made 10,000 a week, and I won because I didn't have to give them their money back. So that's what we sold for a lot of time. The reason we stopped doing it this way was only because I had to launch a program every 12 weeks, which meant if someone contacted me during the middle of that program, I couldn't help them for another 8 to 12 weeks. That really was a problem for me. So by making Attorney Freedom University, I can now help anybody at any time, and I can help people beyond the 10K a week. So like even Cassie will talk about that, where we got done. It was awesome. It was exciting. And then I had nothing else. And so she had to go on and do other things and pay other money to get other help. Right. And so by having Attorney Freedom University, I now have that ongoing support. Some of the people in Cassie's group hit 10,000 a week, and then after the program was over, reverted back to their old habits and went back to 5,000 or 6,000 a week. And that really hurt me. I hate to see someone pay me and only see temporary results, not long-term results. And so by switching over to Attorney Freedom University and keeping the price down, that I have 2 people in our program right now that were in another coaching program that said what we deliver per month was the exact same or more than what they had in their other program, and they paid $2,500 a month for that other program. So by keeping it low at $500 a month, $495 a month, it allows you to stay in it longer and keep results over a longer term. So that's the reason we changed. But because we were doing this, I was like, okay, if you guys have now spent 2 hours and 52 minutes with me, you deserve to get some quick results. And so we brought it back and have all of the stuff right in there so you can hit those results right away. So the question is, would you trade? If that was the case, if I could guarantee you made $10,000 a week every week for the rest of your life, would you give me one of those $10,000 weeks back? The answer should be yes, right? If I give you $1 and then every week for the rest of your life, you get $1 back, you should say yes. But we're not going to charge that much. So the original price, like I said, was $9,995. When we included it in Attorney Freedom University, we sold it for $4,995 because now that we already have the Q&As every single week, I didn't have to do a new Q&A for this. And so I didn't have to charge as much for it. But for this event price only, and this is for today, the fee is $19.95. So you'll sign up for AFU, you will pay the $4.95 for AFU. And then if you would like to upgrade to this, it's the $19.95. So it's a total of $2,500 this first month, and $4.95 every month thereafter. But I wanted to give that to you guys for a discount. If that's something you're interested in. I was like, man, how can I make this the best event? If someone's willing to stick to the end, 2 hours and 53 minutes, what is the best possible thing that I could give them? I was like, well, let's give them 80% off of this program. We're still going to give you that discount, the guarantee. So I got to go through this slide and then we'll talk about the guarantees. Okay. So the real decision then is, are you willing to do the work? And with much power comes much responsibility. You've now been given the system so that you can do it. The question is, internally, are you willing to do it yourself? Because your next steps are really two options. Option one, Attorney Freedom University, $4.95 a month. Option two is Fast Track to Freedom, which is the $19.95. It's a one-time payment of $19.95, and then you keep Attorney Freedom University for $4.95 a month for as long as you want it. The third option, which I crossed out, is Stay Stuck, because I feel confident that if you are still here 2 hours and 55 minutes into this, that you are not willing to stay stuck. And so you just have to pick which one is the best for you. It's the exact same system. It's the exact same outcome. The question is just time. And as I mentioned earlier, I had to learn the hard way the value of speeding things up. So I hit 10,000 a week on my own. I did this on my own, and you could too, if you wanted to spend the time and energy to do so. I can't tell you how many sleepless nights I had to get there, but I was able to get to $10,000 a week on my own. It took me 5 years. My first coaching client did it in 1 year. And the people in Cassie's group was able to do it in 12 weeks. The outcome was the same. The question was just the speed. Now, when I did the math and realized I lost $2.1 million by not knowing how to make $10,000 a week from week one, that was when I was like, man, speed is worth it to me. So whichever option makes the most sense to you, though, is fine. If you're, doing this as a part-time thing because you want to be a stay-at-home mom, or I got clients that are doing that right now. So if that's what you want, that's great. If it's another reason, that's great too. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just what's right or wrong for you. And I wanted to make sure, because the biggest question is, well, will this work? Just because I want the outcome is, will this program work? And so you have two options to see if it works. The first option is this coaching call. So for anybody who upgraded to VIP, you are invited to the coaching call that will start in 15 minutes. And you can just come to a coaching call and see if the coaching calls are valuable to you, right? You won't have access to all of everything in Attorney Freedom University, but at least you can come see a call and see if it's worth it. The other option is I'll just guarantee that it works. So if you join AFU and by the end of the first month, you haven't reclaimed those 10 hours a week that we said you would get today, you just send me a DM and I'll do a free one-to-one call with you. So I've got a coaching call that I do. It's kind of a onboarding audit kind of thing. I usually charge $2,000 for it. And I will do that with you for free, and I'll help you fix the bottleneck. We'll figure out what's wrong. So you'll either get it through Attorney Freedom University as naturally created, or I will jump in and I will figure it out myself to make sure that you reclaim it. Option two, if you decide to upgrade to the Fast Track to Freedom, if you complete that 12-week checklist that has a 100% success rate and you don't hit $10,000 a week, I'll refund you the $19.95. So I used to refund it when it was $10K, or offered to refund it when it was $10K. I'll still offer to refund it at $19.95 because I want to make this risk-free. So really at this point, the only risk is doing nothing and getting nothing, because you'll either do it and it will work, or you'll get your money back, right? Or I'll do it for you. So the last question then is how? How do you sign up? And it's really simple. If you go to School, Attorney Freedom University is hosted on School. So school.com/TFL/about. If you just do school.com/TFL, it will take you to the About page. This is the page, and you'll sign up right there. I will drop that link here in the chat as well. All you have to do is go there, and that will sign you up for Attorney Freedom University. If you're interested in the Fast Track to Freedom upgrade, then you go to the classroom. These are all the modules that are included, right? And you scroll down to Fast Track to Freedom. You click on that, and it will give you the payment link. And I've gone in, I edited that course today to show that it's the $19.95 now. So I will fix that tomorrow morning when I wake up and revert it back to the $4,995. So that's good for today only. But if that's something you're interested in, you can do that. If you sign up for Attorney Freedom University, then everything that's included in the VIP, we've included there as well. So you can get the checklist, the workbook from today's event, and obviously the event replay, which is not on there yet because the event is still live. So that's everything that I could do for you to make this as valuable as possible. So are there any questions? Not just any questions about joining Attorney Freedom University, obviously. I hope to see every single one of you there. And I would love to see you succeed. But are there any questions or concerns on how to reclaim 10 hours a week or anything of that nature? The first question I had was, is the program kind of self-study, or is there some hand-holding? That's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. AFU is do at your own pace with a checklist. And then, like I said, we have the weekly Q&As to support you, as well as a weekly accountability. So my wife follows up with you every single week. And that leads into whatever you need help with, right? So for instance, one of our coaching clients is working on her representation agreement, updating her fee structure. And that is sitting in my email inbox to review this afternoon. As soon as I'm done with our coaching calls, I will work on that. I obviously did this event before I did that. But she needs help with that. And so I'm going to review and give her some feedback on that event. So even though it's not even though she's not in a one-to-one coaching program, I still one-to-one fix those things. The other question was, will this work if the biggest problem is not having enough clients? And the answer is absolutely yes. A big part of what we do, and that's module 2, is the marketing and messaging, is creating a message that sells and is compelling to sell. A big thing that and it's all about that value, right? And so if I can help you fix what we call an offer, that's the phrase here. If I can help you create an offer that's selling, what it also does is help you create an offer that is easy to fulfill. So if you understand what your clients want and you tell them that you'll do what they want, and then you follow through and do the things that you said you were going to do, your clients will pay you, they'll be happy, and you'll get lots of clients, right? So it all starts with that offer creation. So we're going to work on that, and I'm going to give you tools and systems on how to test your offer and refine your offer until you know what's working. One of the biggest reasons marketing and advertising doesn't work is because you have a bad offer. And so if we can fix that first for free up front, then when you're ready to scale and you want to scale to 1 million a month or whatever your goal is, you'll have a good offer, and then you'll know you can take your good offer and you can advertise. And if it's not working, you know it's because the advertisement's not working, not because your offer sucks. And so most advertising companies will tell you that your offer sucks if it doesn't work. And so you want to know that that's not the case, so you can refine and see if it's the company or your offer, right? So we'll start that. The second thing we work on is on offer creation, which even if new clients isn't your issue, by working on that next, it also works on client satisfaction and on the value of your services, which allows you to charge more for what you're doing. So yes, that will be the next thing. What does time with you look like in TFU? No fast track option. It's a good question. So inside of Attorney Freedom University, if you join that, that's a group coaching program. So there's a community tab, so you can ask questions inside the community at any time. And I try to answer as many of those as I can, as will the whole community. And once a week, I open up at least 2.5 hours every single week for an open roundtable Q&A conversation. So if you get there right at the beginning, you'll probably be the only person and you can get some one-on-one time. and as people roll in, obviously it's a group. You also have direct access to me through the messenger system. So if you have a private question, like some people were asking, money specific things that they didn't want to put in the group, you can do that there and I'll respond there. Additionally, inside of each module, there's homework, right? There's things you have to do. Action is the way to get results. So if you do everything at the end of the module, and you submit it to me, I actually do a one-to-one review of all of that for you, like I do with my coaching clients. And so you'll get one-to-one guidance. That's a video that I record and send to you, so you can repeat it and review it as you want. So it's not one-to-one coaching there. I do have a one-to-one coaching option. There's 3 seats left on the one-to-one. That's a little, with the one-to-one, we measure your numbers and we measure your increase, and you only pay me if you're achieving your goals. But obviously it's significantly more money if you are achieving your goals. And there are 3 spots left open. So that's only offered to people who are Attorney Freedom University members though. So it's not on these slides because you're not Attorney Freedom University members yet. But if that's something you end up wanting, we can do that. And like I said, you only pay for the one-to-one if it's working. And that looks like those are all of the questions that we currently have. So thank you for staying. It's always flattering to see how many people were willing to stay and invest their time with me. I hope you found it worth it. I hope your biggest takeaways here is that your time is worth it. Your time is valuable. You deserve to live a life that you love living. And it's doable. It's very doable as an attorney, no matter your practice area, no matter your geographical area. I've done this with small towns and large towns and huge cities. We've done it for people who want to work part-time or full-time. You deserve to live a life you love living, and it's doable. I hope you believe that by the end of this. As always, if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to watch these comments for the next couple of days and see if I can't answer anything. And we'll dive in to there. There's one more question on what the investment for one-to-one is, and I'll reach out to you directly on those. And because that one-to-one is only offered to people who are in Attorney Freedom University. I have to know that you're willing to do the work, but happy to talk to you about that as well. That's by application only though. There's just, like I said, there's only 3 spots left open on the one-to-one by application only. But since I'm getting the questions, I guess I'll answer it. The answer is, well, the first month you'll pay for the setup. And okay, I'll just tell you. So normally the one-to-one is up to $5,000 a month. So what happens there is we figure out how much profit you're making, and then we split the increase in your profit until you've paid the fee in full. And so if you're not increasing in profit, then you don't pay me anything. And if you are, then we split that increase until you've paid the payment in full, and then the rest of it's obviously yours. So there's no fee splitting. I had to make sure this was structured in such a way that wasn't fee splitting. So the fee is normally what's $5,000 a month. For the people who are here and for my current AFU members, I did just offer my current AFU members to cut that fee in half. So it's just $2,500 a month. So same thing. We make sure that it's, what's your current profit, and when you increase in profit, then you pay up to the $2,500 a month. The rest of it's yours. So was not going to talk about that today, but since so many people are asking, I will answer the question. That again is though by application only. So if you're interested in that, shoot me a DM. I am happy to get it set up for you. The first month is just you do the $2,500 the first month because that's where we get all the numbers and stuff set up. But then you don't pay another fee until you're seeing results. So if you're interested, I would love to chat with you about it. That was my mentor. And I was like, no, that's for my AFU members. And so I took it out of the slides, and then sure enough, someone asked. So you're getting the full information early. Happy to do that with you if you're interested. Like I said, there are only 3 spots left for that. because it's my one-on-one time. So I only have so many spots available. So if you're interested, let me know. I'd be happy to work through that with you. If not, though, I hope to see you in AFU. I hope everyone that's still here at least gives AFU a shot. I would love to see you reclaim that time and hit your goals. So I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to wrap this up. The Q&A, it starts in 4 minutes. So I'm going to go hit the restroom, refill my water, and then I'll be jumping on that Q&A here real soon. So if you upgraded to the VIP, we'll see you at the Q&A. If not, you still can, I guess, or you can just sign up for AFU and join us there as well. The link to the Q&A was either emailed to you directly if you upgraded to VIP. If you sign up for AFU in the next 4 minutes, the calendar on AFU has that as well. So if you're, I'll just show that to you guys here. So you can come here, you can go to calendar, and the link, the link for that Q&A will be right here. So obviously this is Mountain Time because I'm in Mountain Time. So hopefully we'll see you guys there. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.